Everybody, and welcome to the show. We're back. I'm very excited to be on your screens for episode 2. My name is Freya, and as always, joining me, my lovely co-host Jackie. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Even better now we're rejoined once again to talk about the latest and greatest in gaming, Freya.
I'm very excited. We have got a banger of an episode for you today. But before we jump into all the content, I want to know what you've been up to since our last show.
Oh, bits and bobs, mostly shed renovation, getting everything in top shape.
As we can see,
yeah, the walls back there, they're coming together. It's no longer just a barren bit of wood. Also been playing different video games. Tried out Gunfire Reborn. It's kind of like Borderlands, but if it was also a roguelike. So it's quite interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's on Steam.
That is very interesting. You were doing some stuff with Blasto, weren't you, as well?
I was. Me and STO, the young statistician, the man with all the grey matter and the wrinkles on his brain. We've been working through a lot of the Blast stuff. Obviously, the qualifiers up to the showdown that's now live.
Very exciting. I've been doing a lot of Red Bull recently, which is really cool. It's a 2v2 CSGO tournament, for any of you guys that aren't familiar. And the Invitational is going to be on this weekend. And we've got some really, really cool professional duos coming to join us as well. And I think if you head on over to the G2 Twitter, they are actually doing votes right now for who you want to see play this weekend. So very exciting stuff indeed. But I think it's about time to introduce our topic for today's show. It's a question that we've been asked a lot. I'm sure it's a question that you definitely most get frequently asked. It's how do you get into esports? And I think it's a really interesting question because there's not one route, is there?
There's not. Esports is a fickle mistress. You can either, you can luck out and find a way where all of a sudden you're given an opportunity and you progress from there. Or sometimes you have to grind for years doing all sorts of different odd jobs till you find one that really suits your skill set, right? Like there's so many different ways to get involved, and it really is just the luck of the draw. It's quite a unique industry in that sense.
Yeah, I'm really excited as well because we've got guests from literally every single corner of the industry, I think, who are going to be coming on and telling their stories about how they got into esports and what their kind of roles entail as well. So it's not just on-camera talent that we have this week, it's actually some people from behind the scene, which I think is going to be really cool. But to kind of preface this, I want to know what your start in esports was, because I actually don't think I know the story.
God, right. Well, we're talking back years ago in the olden times, shrouded in mystery, of around like 2014, 2015, I think. I know, God, it's so far away. When CSGO was still quite young in its infancy and working its way up to being the great game that we have today, a Reddit thread that I think was just entitled like "Casters Needed for Channel," and I commented and was just like, "Hello, yes, I would like to cast, please." Eventually got a reply, and they were like, "Hey man, we listened to that VOD you sent in. We found someone else from the UK, and we want to pair you together." So me and Hugo met each other through that Reddit thread, and we were told we needed to cast together. And we sent in a VOD that, looking back now, is absolutely horrendous. And I don't know why on earth we ever got into the position we were in. But we were given a chance. And from that, obviously, we started doing like online streams and stuff. That led to another thing. It slowly progressed from there. Went to an Epic LAN, had to do some admin work because Gumpster said that I couldn't commentate because I was too new. Regretted that one, Gumpster, didn't you? Eventually made it to obviously being able to commentate at local LANs. And funnily enough, I think it was actually either James or Reese from Face It that was just like, hey, we're doing these online broadcasts. It was at the time when they were doing Oceanic, EU, and NA. And I went down, casted CS with James and Dan for like a week straight. I remember walking to McDonald's at like 4 a.m. to keep myself alive. Every time I'd wake up, Oceanic stuff, and just grinded it out. From there, it just sort of slowly trickled together. But it really was just a matter of incredible luck being on a Reddit thread back in a time when obviously people were still looking for open IP commentators, meeting someone that sort of got on with me and my sense of humor in Hugo, and then just a slow progression of being lucky of being in London near Face It.
Yeah, it really is those sort of moments where if you hadn't done a certain thing, you wouldn't have seen this next certain thing, which leads on to a whole different line of work. I think it's really interesting. I was in a very similar boat of literally just I had a website with my partner as well, Joel, who actually, funnily enough, now works for Faceit as well. And we used to just write articles, and it was just for fun. We used to go to ECS and get press passes somehow. I don't know how we managed to achieve that, because we literally had no experience, but it was amazing because we got to interview players. I watched some back recently. I can't remember why, but the audio on it, God, it was so bad. There were no lapel mics. It was just, like a mic on top of the camera, which we could afford.
Just holding the iPhone in their face, like,
exactly.
Speak, please.
It was awful. I actually think that is the first interview I did with I think it was Nico backstage. For some reason they let us backstage. I don't know why. And we were just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I go up to him with my iPhone and we're just getting voice recordings. And as you know, backstage at an esports event, it's very loud, very hectic. So there was a lot of stuff going on there. But yeah, it was actually a competition through Faceit, and they asked, they were looking for vloggers to go to ECS Season 4 in Cancun. I didn't win, unfortunately, but they asked me to do.
Damn boaster!
I know, God damn it, boaster! Now a Valorant pro, so he's doing good things. But yeah, so he obviously didn't win that. They asked me to do some voiceovers and some interviews, and then I started doing stage hosting. I think it was ECS Season 5 was my first event, which was crazy. And yeah, it's been a nutty ride since then. But you kind of mentioned that you sent in a VOD to that Reddit thread. What were you kind of doing before that? Were you just kind of casting games for fun?
Honestly, it wasn't anything like that. Like, this was the weird point in time in esports as well, especially for me, where like there wasn't that many people casting like CS:GO really, and it was still wide enough as a landscape that as long as you sort of made it clear you wanted to do it and people got on with you as like a person, like, oh, he's a nice guy. Like, a lot of it just sort of came down to being a genuine human, right? And just sort of replying to people, being quite nice back then. Before that, it was more, I played a lot of CS all the way through like CSS. Basically would just go, oh, you got the for it. And I started pretending, do you know like Raheem, like Great Frag TV? I used to do Raheem's voice essentially. People were like, oh, that's banter.
That's
like,
amazing.
You should do this properly and actually commentate. So I went, oh, all right, and saw the Reddit thread and thought, whatever, I might as well give it a shot and see what happens. That was literally it. Like, I had never actually done any professional commentary beforehand. Yeah.
That's awesome. And what was it like adminning as well? Because you mentioned that you did that. Was it Insomnia, you said?
It was Epic Land.
Oh,
it was
Epic
very
Land,
stressful.
sorry.
Yeah, it was very, very stressful. I remember I sort of was like, look, I'll do it. I understand CS. It'll be easy. And then I get there and I just didn't know what I was doing. And luckily, John Kelly, famous UK admin, basically just took me under his wing and was like, don't worry, mate. I'll fix things. Can you just update the bracket? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I can do that.
That's amazing. What was it like, sort of going back to those lands? I know we were sort of talking about it with actually one of our guests who's going to be coming up very shortly. You were talking about the old lands you used to attend. It's nuts seeing how different things are now, right?
Dude, it's crazy. It's really interesting as well because it feels like I've sort of lived through that twice, in the sense where iSeries changed from being this like really heavy competitive focused sort of LAN to expanding into obviously like a huge sort of completely different event where it's more of an expo and there's all these different things going on. Then you had Epic LAN, which still was stuck to that sort of core roots of just Counter-Strike, just like incredibly competitive titles, all about esports. You all know each other, you walk in, you see your mates, you set your PC up, you game. If you get knocked out in groups, then who really cares, right? Like, it was one of those where it's like you're with all your friends, you'll still have a great time. Everyone will pull up a chair and watch the finals. So to see that now progress into, again, being another one that's actually grown to a point where it's big enough to have moved into a different LAN hall, it's getting way more media coverage than it ever used to. It's ridiculous, like the growth of the UK LAN circuit, considering we basically only have 2 LANs. Now both of them they're quite big and intimidating potentially to be like, wow, this actually looks like a super serious event compared to it being like, oh, I'm going to go and compete. Like, it's an Epic LAN. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking back to the first proper LAN I attended with other people outside my friendship group, because we always used to get our PCs and set up in one of our poor friends' houses. He had a massive table, a poor guy. We used to put our PCs on it whenever his parents went away, and I don't know, he must have had quite hassle cleaning up afterwards because it always gets very messy there. But yeah, we actually, I think it was Insomnia. It was back when it was in Coventry.
Okay, yeah.
So a while ago, I'm thinking maybe 2014, we went there because one of our friends was trying to be a professional Halo player, and he managed to get into the playoffs. He actually managed to get into the final. But one of our friends was actually in uni in Coventry, and because we were poor, we were young, we couldn't afford a hotel, so we all bundled in. I think there were 6 of us into his uni dorm, and we were literally just sleeping on the floor. And I remember our friend was getting up one morning to head to the grand finals, and it's just like, wow, look how glamorous esports is now compared to those sort of days. We're all just sleeping on the floor in our sleeping bags, but it was really, really cool.
That's like literally what like local LANs were, and I'm pretty sure still are. Like you go to a LAN, couldn't afford a hotel, so it's like we'll all just share a hotel.
Yeah,
it'll be fine. Everyone's just sleeping wherever they can. Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. It's so good though. It's what makes it feel special. And then obviously waking up for a grand final when you're incredibly hungover and just lost, no idea where you are.
Good old UK LANs indeed. But I think without further ado, it's time to bring in our first guest of the day. So let's welcome in Sam Deans.
The level of competition here is extremely high. I think it's even more so than last time.
Stand by D3 opening video.
30 seconds.
Music from D3 and cameras will shoot it.
Let's go wide.
20 seconds till D3 opening video.
Lower ground where there's like
circle package available
there, and you kind of have to make a decision because you can see Liquid was
2 minutes on BT.
Lovely stuff, guys.
Well done, Marco.
Stand by Jib for out of BT.
Get the next lot of graphics ready, obviously.
Standing by on
The Insomnia
Group
Crucible
A.
Championship is one of them.
In 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Music GD2. Thanks, guys. Nice job. See you in 4 minutes for Frankie to bring us back in with an interview with Team Liquid.
Thanks so much for joining us, Sam. It's lovely to actually have you join me on the show because you're normally the one that's in my ear. How are you doing today?
Absolutely. Hi, friends. It is a very different vibe being this side of the camera as opposed to you staying very much behind the camera in the control room and being the voice in your ear. So please be nice to me. I much prefer being hidden away in the background than on camera. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. And hi, Jackie. Good to see you too, friendo.
It's good to see you, mate. You're looking dashing. I'm glad to see I've rubbed off on you a little bit there with the fashion advice.
You know the rules of fashion, right? Try and dress as like you as you possibly can, and that is what cool is.
Can we just preface this for the audience? Sam actually gave Jackie an option of 2 shirts, and of course he chose the one that's most like his own. I feel like I'm really out of place not being in pink here.
Thanks, mate.
You look amazing, Sam, and your background looks amazing as well. You've really you've showed us up there.
I try. I felt like I had to try and keep the production vibe up even at home in sunny Bath in the UK, which is where
well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It's awesome to get an insight from somebody who's actually, normally behind the camera. And for maybe those of you watching that aren't familiar with you and your role, can you kind of explain a little bit of what that entails?
100%. So my role is kind of a cross between a live broadcast producer and a live broadcast director. So maybe we can go in a couple of minutes and talk about different roles, what they actually mean. But what I do as a profession is I used to work for a few different companies in the past. I've worked for Multiplay, who do the Insomnia series, as their broadcast manager. And I helped to kick off their esports production with those guys. And I also worked full-time for ESL for 3 years as executive producer. So looking after all the happened at ESL, and then at the start of 2019, I moved to being a freelance. Is my audio any better now, Reese? Any better? We're just having some mic issues. I think
we'll get that sorted. So it's the nature of
it is production, isn't it?
This is how it works, right? Obviously, the changes of us being at homes, which also kind of makes sense with the sense of you being there looking at Dash In with all the LEDs behind you, versus being in a truck, which is normally where we expect to find Mr.
Absolutely. These things can definitely happen. I'm sure we'll get it fixed.
We're working on it.
Yeah, cool. Should we carry on, or should we?
Yeah. Let's keep talking, because you were mentioning just about your 2 different roles that you've kind of typically undertaken. Can you kind of walk through maybe what a day in the life of Sam Deans is like when you're on sort of a usual event when we're on LAN?
Yeah, of course. So a normal day for me, let's take, for example, producer capacity. So basically a producer is someone who is really responsible for the whole flow of a production, usually from start to finish. And in my respect, that also usually includes technical as well. So that involves taking care of all the technical aspects of production. For example, all the different cameras you might need, all the different graphics feed, how the replays are working, and making sure you've got all the equipment ready to go, it all works, and your kind of concept for how everything connects. And because broadcasts can kind of start off quite small from a bedroom-sized broadcast, and some of the stuff we work with face it and go massive. We can talk to like 30, 40 crew, OB trucks, like hundreds of cables and little things to plug in here and there. It can really stretch to how big it is. So really it starts with that design, and that technical design often contributes directly to the content design of a show as well. So a producer also normally looks after the design and the concept of a show. So what sort of items are we going to cover? How are we going to present this particular game or this particular esport? You know, it's really, you have to start at square one. So what do you want to show, and then how do you show it? So that's kind of everything that's kind of done pre-production before we go live. And then when we arrive on site, that's when my role transitions to a more director type role. So hopefully all of your work is done and everyone should have an idea of what's going to happen when you arrive on site. It's chaotic at first. Definitely the first 1 or 2 days on a site when you arrive in a stadium or a studio can be crazy, because you're having to sort of transfer all the information, let everyone know what's going on, manage the setup, and there's questions and there's lots of moving parts. So it's very busy. These first couple of days on site, including rehearsals, are often some of the busiest times for me. But yeah, so we start off there, and as we transition through to rehearsals and live, I kind of change into the voice, the director voice. And that is the person who, as we're doing a live show, is telling all the crew and the talent, so people like Freya and Jacky, I'm the voice in their ears, what's going on. So, for example, if we're approaching a certain segment, let's say in a show, I might say to Freya, move on to the segment about this player. And that's how Freya knows to move on. And then behind the scenes, I'm making sure that the graphics person brings up a relevant graphic to show stats about this player. I'm giving instructions and commands to all the crew to make sure that all that translates out to what we see on screen. So usually, whatever goes on screen, if something's wrong, it's usually my fault because I've said the wrong thing to do. But equally as well, it's great because my job as a director is to follow sometimes people like Freya and Jacky and other talent like that. But if they're going on a certain tangent or a certain route, I support them with making sure we show the right camera feed of a player, or making sure we show the right graphic, making sure we play the right video at the right time. It is really that one voice that pushes the content of the show out and gives those live cues. That's kind of a producer director. I do a blended version of both. Sometimes you get just producers, sometimes you get just directors. That's pretty much loosely how my life revolves on site.
Yeah, and I think in the intro video for you, it's really interesting to hear you make videos when you're actually producing and directing live, and you can hear those kind of cues that start to come in. It's really, really interesting for many people at home, I imagine, who just don't get that kind of insight. Why did you kind of start making those? Was it to just provide that insight of what it's like behind the scenes?
Yeah, so I think I've always had a real interest in live broadcast. Like, it's always fascinated me, this idea that we can make videos but live. I think that's a crazy concept. And what's really interesting, I think, what a lot of people don't realise is there's this whole other conversation going on behind the scenes of a broadcast that is the crew who are working on a show. And that is almost like, imagine like a Discord server or a TeamSpeak server for some of us who play online games. Like, that is basically what's happening in behind the show. Every show has this headset line that all the crew can talk and listen. And that's how we communicate and deliver the show. And that's how everyone behind the scenes knows what's going on. And it can get intense. There's often a lot of different voices going on. There's a lot of instruction that he's given. There's a lot of coordination that happens behind the scenes that people at home never realise goes on. I remember when I was first starting esports, when I used to get questions being like, why do you guys need all this equipment? Why do you need these 30 operators? Is it not just one person on OBS running a stadium show in like the Birmingham?
Yeah, it's nuts.
So yeah, it was really just to kind of take what I found fascinating about live broadcasts and just give a bit of a glimpse in for anyone who found it interesting about how it actually comes to life on the other side of esports broadcast.
Yeah, no,
that is the
it's
crazy
fascinating.
part, right? It's especially even in the sense of there's obviously you as a producer, what you've just explained there, the fact where basically if we translate this into kind of gaming terms for some of our viewers at home, right, Sam, you're like the IGL of the show. You come in, you show call it, right? You give them the info. When you make calls, all of those people beneath you that are essentially working on different parts as well. So you might have like the TD, the replayer, all these other people that do all these things that are again attributed to you. So you need to micromanage them whilst they're doing their individual role to put it all together as one big operation at the end. So it really does rely on consistent communication across the board.
Dude, and you've struck a really nice note, which is teamwork and trust within a production crew is huge. Like, it's massive. And I'm so lucky that a lot of the people I get to work with are either really close friends who I've worked with a lot, and we've kind of developed trust and workflows between us, or maybe new people, but generally who are really good at their jobs. Like, a lot of people who work in production are super skilled and talented. But you do require that trust and teamwork, because even though I'm the director, I don't like to think of that role as like the boss or the most important thing, because actually, out of everyone on the crew, I'm the only person not actually pressing a button. Like, I'm only talking and delivering instructions, but I'm not really making anything happen. It's up to the individual skill then of each person to have their own area in line and working. Well, I can say my stuff or whatever and give instruction, but if the graphics person's graphics aren't ready to go out, or the replay operator hasn't got the right clips already saved to play out when I ask for a replay of that crazy kill from round 2, nothing happens. So it's massive teamwork, and also like huge respect to everyone who works in broadcast, because there is some crazy technically high-skilled jobs in what people do. And it's been a pleasure over the last sort of 5-6 years in esports to actually follow a couple of career development, and I've been able to work with these people. And I couldn't do my job without the people around me that I do. It's awesome.
Yeah, I love that you kind of struck on that chord as well, because something that strikes me about kind of, esports in general, especially with the production, is that if one person wasn't there, the show couldn't happen, right? Yeah. It's so reliant on all these different kind of roles coming together. But we mentioned in the opener your lovely background. This is actually your home broadcasting setup, isn't it?
This is. So obviously we're in a strange time, being COVID-19. And shout out to our NHS, who are doing an awesome job supporting us as a country. So basically that meant that for a lot of us in esports production, whether you're behind the scenes or in front of the camera, our jobs have changed. Physical events have really been cancelled, obviously, during this period, no public gatherings. So anything that was previously scheduled to be an event in a stadium or a broadcast in a studio has really been cancelled or heavily adapted to work within the conditions of social distancing and quarantine. So what that's meant for people like me is normally I had a load of work during quarantine. I was supposed to spend a whole month in India, kicking off a PUBG mobile pro league there. I had some events in the Philippines I was supposed to fly out for, with stuff in Europe. That obviously all got cancelled and canned. So that couldn't happen. But what I've actually managed to do is slightly pivot and jump into this idea of remote broadcasting, which is everyone playing from home, or the talent like yourselves, joining a broadcast from their home, setups using webcams and microphones, and being able to broadcast throughout the internet with everyone staying at home. So all the feeds are remote. And being able to do it from home. So this is basically, I mean, I won't lie, this started off as my gaming setup. This is not built purely for the remote broadcasting reason.
Got the Borderlands screenshots there as well.
Mate,
promoting the characters, of course.
Fun, wasn't it? I love it, Borderlands. So really what I've taken is, screens are really important. Having lots of screens is really important to be able to see all the information feeds and what's going on in a broadcast. I must admit, I'm firmly in the ultra-wide monitor gang, both for gaming and working. It's really quite useful. I won't lie. So what I basically do now at the moment is the last couple of weeks I've been developing a solution where I can host broadcasts internet. People can log in from their computers. If you're a caster or an analyst, you can use your webcam and computer, you can join the broadcast, and we can pretty much replicate what we used to do, obviously on a much smaller scale, but we can replicate what we used to do at events and still push out broadcasts without leaving our homes, which is pretty cool. That was me in the good old days of being able to leave the house and go and work in a production studio. That was at BT Studios in London, or Birmingham actually. But yeah, that is my room at the moment. That is my setup. It's interesting actually, because even though I've got all those screens and all that stuff happening, I'm actually not using my computer or my home internet, really. This is a little bit nerdy, I'll keep it loose. We're actually using remote servers that are based in an Amazon data center in London that are running all of the technical equipment and all the technical systems. Reason being that these data centers have got like crazy internet speeds. Like, I ran a speed test on my data center in London, and it's literally got like 1,000 up, 1,000 down. My mind is blown. Which means for bringing in like guests and streaming, that's what you need. You need that internet bandwidth. Anyone who's done streaming from their house knows that you have to have good internet upload to be able to stream. Yeah. So same concept here, just bigger. So I'm just remote accessing those servers from my house. And that's how we're rolling. So it's kind of an interesting workflow. It's something that a lot of other people are doing. I'm not unique in this at all, and I don't claim to be the only one. There's a lot of people who have been able to jump on this idea of producing remote broadcasts, but it's been an interesting pivot, and it's also been so fascinating to see how different people have approached finding a solution for working in COVID. I know it's affected, obviously, your guys' day-to-day work as well in life. Jacky had to build a shed from scratch. You can see behind him. He's been busy building this and able to broadcast from home.
We got a tour, didn't we, at the shed earlier? It was fantastic. Maybe later.
Maybe. We'll do it for another episode, because it's still a bit of a mess. Coming up towards the closing periods, I've slowly been revamping her. She's a good old girl. She does well. She
nice
does
shed,
well.
Mate. Nice shed.
Thank you. She says thank you too.
Good to know. So that's basically been my life for the last couple of weeks. Yes, it'll be interesting to see post COVID how esports jobs change, or whether we keep doing this on, because online broadcasting is interesting. It's different. It's kind of cheaper to run. There's no physical events, but you're very much limited in what you can produce. But I can't wait to be back at events and be back with the Face It gang, work with you guys in a big stadium. Some of that'd be fun. So let's do something soon, please.
Oh, yes, I can't wait for Lance to be back. But as you mentioned, it's really cool seeing how people are kind of innovating and making sure that adapting. Right, that's exactly what it is. And I mean, other than obviously the fact that you don't have your normal broadcast crew around you, are there any sort of major differences to the setup that you have here compared to sort of a normal behind the scenes broadcast?
Definitely. So the main difference is that it's normally when we're doing a big broadcast for an esports show, we have lots of different crew, each doing one job. So we mentioned before a couple of roles that you might find on-site esports broadcast, being a director myself, a TD, which stands for technical director. So that is the person who often...
Tower defense.
No, although Blue Tower Defense, best mobile game ever. So TD is the person who has loads of buttons in front of them on a huge control panel, and they're responsible for pushing the button that corresponds to the right camera or gameplay source. So what you see on screen is mixed by the technical director. They're basically composing that image live. You've got sound engineers who operate a sound desk, who basically make sure we're hearing the right mix. Graphics people who make sure the right graphics part of video. Yeah, the list is endless of roles. With remote broadcasting, it makes it much more difficult to expand and have lots of people working on a production, just because the more different things you have to send through the internet, the harder it gets. That's really what it comes down to. So what it means that people like myself, I'm probably doing as much as I can myself, kind of one-man banding it, if you like. I've got a bass drum on my back, I've got a snare drum attached to my foot. We're basically having to make use of automation tools is the key thing. And I'm going to give a shout out to Stream Deck, which is a very common tool, I think. For any streamers out there, you'll know what this is. Basically some buttons with screens on that you can customize and make do things. And I think this is where innovation really comes into it, because I've had to look at ways of which I can do a lot more with just two hands than maybe would be normally be able to do. So automation. So for example, when I press a button that shows my casters, at the same time, it would, on the audio side, it would make the audio live without me having to press a different button. So it's automating and simplifying those tasks of the job of 2 or 3 or 4 people, not have to change to one button press. That's kind of from a workflow perspective. It's been important to look at the tools available and automate and be smart. And obviously, the most scary thing about remote broadcasting is having to rely on other people's internet connections.
Yes.
That's terrifying, because of course we can do all the work we can do our end, but if the person's home internet sucks, I did a FIFA tournament for 24 celebrities. So we had the cast of Love Island, we had pro football players, we had some TV personalities, quite A-list celebrities. It wasn't necessarily an esports thing, but although it was playing FIFA through the internet, and they were all competing from home. And even the background of their camera feeds, they've got these $1 million mansions and beautiful homes, but their internet sucked. They could barely push a sensible video call to me, and I'm just sitting here with all this control system and show ready to go, and then there's nothing you can do when the signal drops out and you get about 3 frames per second a PowerPoint slideshow from them. It's got challenges. It's been interesting. It's nice that we can still find ways to work. At the end of the day, this is my job, doing broadcasting, and whether that's directing a production or producing a big production or scaling it down and kind of keeping busy doing this sort of stuff. It's technology and solutions out there that mean I can literally sit in my underwear and do the production from my PC. It's pretty mad.
I suppose in this heat as well.
Oh,
You've been making full use
my
of
window
that.
is my best friend.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Love Island as well, because the little birdie's told me you're quite the fan, aren't you?
That may or may not be true. There's an update to this, Freya, actually, is that one of my director, I work with a technical director now, who's basically worked on a lot of TV shows, one being Love Island. So I can say that I've worked with the director of Love Island, which is sick. Big shout out to Alex, who's one of my closest
You've basically been on Love
buddies.
Island then. That's
exactly
awesome.
that. I might as well have been. Exactly. And I've spoken now to Chris and Kem. They were on a broadcast of mine, so that was fun. I basically said, stand by for live. you're live. There you go.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, you've basically been on Love Island now, Sam.
Full
you know what?
thing.
You've made it.
Love it, love it. Wait till I'm directing Love Island. That'll be the objective. Right? That's the achievement.
I reckon we could get you on as a guest with how you're looking. You're looking fresh, Sam.
Oh, Jacky, do not speak to
I
that look, sir.
Jackie, you're just saying that because you picked his clothes, aren't you?
You are someone else.
Oh, I can couple up with him.
Well,
Depends,
I think
mate.
it might be about time to bring on our second guest of the evening. It's a man that really needs no introduction. It's, of course, the wonderful James Bardolph.
You gotta be kidding me. Like,
Yeah.
that's not happening. Here he is. Here he is, Bardolph.
Bardolph now.
Get one at the start.
No,
oh,
no.
This is it.
He might get it. Oh, he might get this.
What is happening?
Oh,
what
James
is happening?
Bardolph!
It was outstanding, and I knifed Dan. He didn't dominate me. He might have wrecked other people, but I knifed Dan, so it's all good in Node over here.
Welcome to the show, James. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. All the way from the jungle, it seems.
Yeah, I decided to, well, I kind of broke my webcam doing some OBS stuff, so I had to use the green screen, so I thought, why not just get a... Why not get a background?
You're making good use of it. We actually worked on the Rebel Flick. It was the EU countries close qualifiers, wasn't it, on the weekend? What have you been up to since then?
Playing a lot of Counter-Strike as normal.
Nice.
I was playing Doom on Nightmare mode. I got to the final boss and like it's really hard. So I'm just like, okay, I'm going to take a break from this. Like it's absurdly hard.
I've never played Doom.
Oh, you're missing out, man. If you want to like warm up for Counter-Strike, it's fantastic because you get these. There's like arenas where you have to fight like 60 enemies or something. And you can't kind of proceed until you just wipe out everybody. And there's like 100 of them in the whole game. It's nuts. That's stuff you have to do. So it's really good to like get your brain going for sure. It's amazing. It's actually amazing.
Oh, I might need to invest in it after this show. That might be what I'm doing for the rest of the week until the next Rebel Flick broadcast. But I kind of wanted to talk to you and Sam actually loop back to our topic of the day, which is how to get into esports. So you kind of briefly mentioned your sort of route. You started off with multiplayer and then ESL UK. What kind of led you to pursuing this as a career in the first place?
Sure. Well, like everyone's story always starts with bit of a weird story. This is a theme, right? Everyone's got this idea of how they got in. So mine started really maybe a little bit differently from others actually. So I first got into digital marketing and gaming. So that's actually I entered the gaming industry before I sort of transitioned into broadcast or esports. So what I was doing was I was digital marketing manager of Turtle Beach, the gaming headset company. So doing all sorts of things like social media management, video production for those guys. And that really showed me that the industry at large is pretty awesome. It's a super fast-moving industry, really vibrant, full of young, cool people. And at that point, I was like, I enjoy gaming. It's a super big hobby of mine. Like being able to work in this industry is sick. Throughout my career, I kind of did a few different jobs, and it always sort of led me towards video. Video was always the thing that really was interesting me, and I was making videos. So at this point, maybe when I was 18, 19, 20, maybe actually a bit younger than that, was really working at like recording videos, so going to events and shooting event coverage at things like EGX or other gaming events across the UK. I was kind of producing events for my employer at the time, which was Help for Heroes, so big shout out to those guys, UK charity. Getting to work with that for a year was amazing. Basically just creating stories of these wounded soldiers and how they recovered through the charity, which was really cool. Wow. But that was the love of video. And then all of a sudden I was at the Gadget Show Live, which was a UK trade show that was like a bit techie, a bit gaming. And I was there with a little camera, maybe age 16, 15 or something, like shooting. I think my brother was my cameraman, and I was like presenting these videos on YouTube for this random YouTube channel I did. No one needs to know about that though. And I was approached by someone who we all know as Mike Benbenick, who is someone who works at Faceit. He is the producer at Faceit, really good friend.
He's the guy who used to work in porn, right?
Yeah, something like that. There's many a story of Mike. I'm sure we can all share those afterwards. And he saw me with the camera. Was like, hey, we need a camera person for this event I'm doing in Blackpool next week. We just had a drop out. Like, you're a person, you've got a camera. Can you do it? And I was like, sure, why not? And what the job was to go into EG or ECL Blackpool. doing Gears of War many years ago.
Nice.
And my job was to stand on stage with my camera, plug into a flimsy little HDMI port that kept snapping or breaking. And basically, I was the only camera on this production. So pretty much where I waved this camera is what the audience at home saw. And that was pretty much it.
Is that Norbrecht Castle?
It was the Norbrecht Castle.
I was working that event as well.
Oh, mate. Fond memories of this castle.
Phoenix Knights.
Yeah, sharing a double bed with one of my colleagues. It was male colleagues. It was great.
Standard.
Classic esports.
Classic esports, exactly. And anyway, from doing this, I got to see this thing that was live broadcast. I saw there are people making this live show, and I was like fascinated because all I'd known before is recording a video and then editing it and it goes on the internet. Whereas like this was happening live, and if it went wrong, it went wrong. That's it. So the adrenaline there of like live broadcast really hooked me. And just like sort of Jacky said, it's about finding opportunity and saying yes to it, no matter if you can do it or not. That's irrelevant. Just making sure that you're confident enough to know that you can do it, whether you've had experience or not, is a really important thing to kickstart your career. So someone for multiplayer or someone for, I can't remember, the next event, I basically just started doing more and more very gradually, and I got to start pushing some buttons on broadcast and vision mixing, and very slowly learning just from doing and having a few people like Mike show me the ropes to do very simple job. Because I put myself out there as someone who could be just trusted to do stuff, not necessarily having the skills, but presenting yourself as someone who can do things if you're given 5 minutes of teaching. And that just developed until I was asked to do my first broadcast gig, being like, "Hey Sam, you can vision mix for it," and I was go, "Yeah, okay, fine." Doing a project at the Gadget Show Live, I was in charge of a stage, and that was my first thing. So overnight, I read the entire product manual of this piece of equipment I was using, like 300-page manual of how to use a thing. Never used it before. Luckily, it was fine. And then I got asked back, and that was multiplayer. So that was my first job in esports. After volunteering with multiplayer and then working freelance for them, directing and vision mixing some stages, I was offered a job at multiplayer to be their broadcast manager and kick off their esports offering. So the story is really that do something that gets you in. So for me, that was my YouTube channel. I was going at events off my own money, making sure I was at events and shooting videos, making sure that you take the time to introduce yourself to people. I say is really important because this industry, unfortunately, is very much about who you know. As much as that's very difficult to give practical advice that isn't who you know, it is who you know. So making acquaintances is super important. And then monetizing off those relationships. So if someone says, "Hey, can you do this?" or "Hey, I'm looking for someone to do that," give it your best shot. If you think of it, even though you haven't quite had that exact experience, go for it because you'll learn super quick. And just being confident enough to go forward and do it. That is my message, I think, for the early stages of jumping into esports broadcast. And that's how it got me, just by saying yes and making sure that I did as much as I could to be equipped to do the job I was asked to do.
That's awesome. I didn't actually realise it was Mike who, gave you that in terms of the first live show that you actually did. Weird that it's actually Mike and Reese who's producing the show who did that same to me. We're like, it's a stage. I've never hosted one before, but, try it. Give it a shot. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I think that's what's really awesome and is so, I really agree with what you're saying about just saying yes to those opportunities, even if you might not have enough experience in it. You'll get experience by doing it, and if you can learn fast, I think that will take you far. Yeah, exactly. You've got to be confident in saying yes. Like if you say yes and then you're a bit shit at something, that's not going to go great for you. But I think a lot of the time when we're offered an opportunity, we all know if we can do it or not. Yeah, and I think that's the cool thing about esports as well, is that most people are in this, as you kind of said. I think we've all done this, worked off our own back, paid for the stuff on our own just because we enjoy it. And people seeing that, it gives them the motivation to actually, this person really deserves a shot, and they've displayed that they can do certain things before. So yeah, I think that's a really cool thing about esports. Yeah, and you've got to love it as well. Like we all love what we do, 100%. And everyone who talks to me in esports loves it. And maybe that's not exactly the same love. Like for me, I'll be the first person to admit that I'm in esports broadcasting because I actually love the broadcast side first. And then my love of esports and gaming follows second and third behind it. And that's important because I approach my work in that respect. I'm not the most knowledgeable guy on CS or PUBG or League, like whatever game I'm working on. But I don't need to be to do my job. That's the job of, for example, you guys on screen, or a content producer who's working on a specific game title. But I know what I need to do to put on a broadcast and make it work and put on a good show. And so that's my love. But for example, other people in esports will say, I want to work in esports because I love this idea of esports. I love following teams and games, or I want to work on one specific title. So it's important to make what you love. And by saying I love esports you need to be more granular than that, I think. Having that one step further as to what you want to do, or what is it in particular, what skills you want to use, that will help you to define the areas you want to target when you look for maybe work or opportunities in esports. Yeah, totally agree. I kind of wanted to pivot over to you, James, and ask you about your background even before you started getting into esports, because you have so many interesting stories every time I talk to you.
Okay, so let's see. Before I started working full-time esports, I worked in commercial real estate. So I guess like if we go back before that, I joined. I left college and stuff, and I didn't go to uni. I wanted to go straight into like Microsoft certified stuff. I was going to do an MCSE certified software engineer. I can't even remember what the S stands for.
The Cisco courses?
Yeah, and Cisco, CCNA to CCNP. And I thought, okay, let me try and have the long road of going to CCIE, Internet Network Expert, where you kind of print your own checks to some degree, and it's super freaking nerdy and unsociable. So I did those courses for a while. I think I did 3 of the MCPs for the MCSE, and I did the CCNA stuff. And but the problem is, like, if in the short term, if you're doing IT for a company which is not an IT company, then it's shit, basically. It's like fixed printers, stuff like that. So I was pretty young, and I joined a real estate company as their IT support guy, which ended up being IT manager, because we had like a VPN across 3 offices and blah, blah, blah. But I managed to blag my way into a sales role when one of my colleagues left, because the website was super manual. It was like HTML, and they wanted 6 properties per page, and it was so crap that like if one property needs to be removed from the site, you have to shuffle them along every other page to keep it even and so on. So like I learned the basic info of the properties just by having to do that tedious job all the time without breaking all the frames that it was based on. Anyway, they said if you can get 3 properties under offer, deal agreed on before it gets to contract, in 3 months, then we'll give you the job. And I managed to do that. It was by Christmas, so I did that. And after that, I did that for 7 years. So I sold offices on the South Bank of London between Waterloo and just beyond Tower Bridge for 7 years. I won awards for my company every year. They ran awards. So I was it was cool because I got to use my personality rather than just do boring, my printer doesn't work type stuff.
Yeah.
So I learned on the job. I would take people to viewings. They'd be like, "Oh, what is the service charge? Does this, this is on the ground floor? Does it include lift and stuff like that?" And I was like, "I'll have to get back to you on that. I'll double check that for you," because I didn't know what questions to expect and so on. So I learned on the job. I had to blag it. But once I knew what I was doing, I became very good at it. So that was really cool. I sold an office to an ex-bank robber once, which was awesome. He told me how you treat hostages. Never point a gun at the hostages because it makes them nervous. Stuff like that. Yeah, the chit chat was really good.
Good to know.
So he was actually awesome. I sold him 2 offices, and each time he walked around for about 15 seconds. Like, yeah, I'll buy it, and it was like 800 grand. So madness.
That's nuts.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. So yeah, that job was cool. So that's what I did before I joined full-time esports.
So what was that kind of? Well, yeah. Well, I was going to ask, like, what sort of made you pivot into esports?
I should mention actually that I was really lucky in that because I was selling properties, I got to deal with a lot of solicitors, and it wasn't emotional stuff like buying a house where it's emotional driven, it's business driven. And if I was, let's say a company were buying something through a pension fund, then you'd have 3 sets of solicitors, one for the pension fund, one for the guy whose pension fund it is, which is kind of weird, and one for the other party. So having to deal with all that stuff and contracts and so on was super, super, super useful. And being in a sales role where your income is based on your own performance and only that was pretty awesome as well. So that gave me really valuable lessons. But while I was doing that from about 2009, I was playing Street Fighter on the European circuit and in the UK as well. I wasn't necessarily the best player, but I had the money to travel with everybody and enter DreamHacks and do Paris Bushido Impact and stuff like that every month, and Max Stemmer Germany. So how the esports thing started was that I noticed watching the American streams that we barely had any streams in the UK, and the American players were getting, they were building themselves personalities. They were getting more opportunities. They were getting sponsors, but we didn't have the exposure in Europe to do that. Like at DreamHack Winter, they would only stream the top 3 of the entire tournament from the Dream Arena Extreme. Paris were recording with no commentary, putting on. And London, there wasn't a whole lot going on. There was the odd thing here or there, but that we could do a lot more. So I ended up looking into how we could do live streams of these tournaments, because there was, we were missing a trick. Like, you'd have a lot of people who would turn up to a DreamHack, for example, and people were coming from Korea to play and so on. So there was a lot going on. So I ended up becoming the broadcasting for the whole of Europe, basically, for the kind of the AAA streams and events, mainly for Street Fighter, but things around it as well. So it kind of just went from passion, essentially. I used to do it off my 17-inch MacBook Pro with Matrox plugged into the side, and then I got a Mac Mini, then I got a Mac Pro dustbin, and used to carry that around. And I had to design my whole broadcasting setup so I could just take the expensive stuff on the plane with me. I had to fly BA in order to do this, because they, EasyJet would they have their limit would be too small or whatever.
Yeah.
And then all the cables and all that kind of stuff would be in the suitcases. So it started as a passion project. I used to go to DreamHack and pay for an Ibis. I'd have like 4 players sleeping on the floor of my hotel as well. Then they ended up giving me a hotel. Then they ended up, it got to a point where we had built it and it was like really popular. And then they started paying me to stream on the DreamHack channel instead. But I still have the VODs on my YouTube. And then from there it went, the Capcom Pro Tour came up, and I started doing white label broadcasts. And then I had to make a company for all this stuff, because we were doing Milan Games Week every week, various streams in France, in Cannes at Milan Games Week, Paris Games Week as well, all this kind of stuff. I even did a broadcast in Kuwait for the Capcom Pro Tour, which was fun because I had no idea if my equipment was going to get confiscated or not. I just turned up to the airport with it. The guys asked me if I was a DJ, and I said yeah, and he's like, cool. He thought it was awesome. And through. So that was pretty lucky. We had a weekly show in Gamerbase and HMV as well, where this was the Mac Pro and Mac Mini days, where the MacBook Pro. So I would bring a little suitcase to work on Wednesdays and Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it would have just a super compact setup. So I'd go have 2 wired microphones. So we'd have the Street Fighter tournament on Tuesdays and then a Ratchet Marvel tournament on Thursdays, which was great fun. Every week for years we did that. That was so that stuff was pretty cool. So it was just all a passion project. It made money on the side with the white label broadcasts and so on. But then how it ended up being a job was, obviously I've always been a Counter-Strike person as well. And so Meltdown Bar in London, I actually found that property for them. They
really?
So I got put in touch with them while I was still working in property, and I had dinner with the girl who owns it and the person who was the branch manager until semi-recently. So I gave them a list of retail properties, because I didn't deal with retail, but I had access to the systems and so on. So I helped them find that in the first place, which was really cool. But anyway, Fnatic were doing events there, and I went and spoke to Khan and said, hey man, I think I got something to contribute with this commentary stuff. But I wasn't really looking, again, it's just passion, just because I love it, know, and I'm creative, I'm achievement driven. So he put me in touch with Faceit, and so it kind of worked for both. I was still working in real estate full time, but it got to the point where with the commentary, I was putting in fake appointments for viewings at the end of the day, where it's so far away you wouldn't bother coming back to home, but there was no appointment there. I was going to, that's the flexibility of sales. It's not quite 9 to 5. It's just, as long as you bring the money in, then it doesn't really matter. So I'd be doing that, going to the studio to make it for the European broadcast, then doing the North American broadcast, finishing at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., going home, sleep for an hour, go to work, another fake appointment, go and sleep on the table in an empty office for an hour so I can function. So that was happening for a while. Because I had already had production experience in my own production company, I was doing the odd League of Legends stream, producing that for Faceit. I did some Quake streams for them as well. But obviously, so I think at some point they offered me a job, and I think for where the industry was at the time, I could produce. I came from the same background as my boss actually, which was good. So we were on the same wavelength. But I could produce. I could commentate, which I was learning on the job. But I was reliable, and I didn't really if I didn't agree with something they were doing, I wasn't shy to say it. which a lot of people would just, like, oh, that's my boss. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say whatever the fuck I think is is right for the moment. So I was, I had multiple skills. So at that time, with a small company, you needed to do that. Like, it's crazy the things we used to do back then. But that's how. So he said, like, I'd like you to work with us permanently. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, my job's pretty easy, so I need like this to leave. And it's kind of scary because it's like esports is so uncertain, and everybody who works at my little place has been there for a very long time. I was there for 10 years, and my leaving did trigger a few people to leave. But I think otherwise people would be there forever. People who were there before me still work there now. But again, it was cushy. We had a nice area in terms of the properties there, so you had a good churn. But yeah, so it was the fact I kind of had naturally developed multiple skills. I had business background from the work I did, which is it's all kind of proven. That's one thing which is often missing is like in esports is business acumen. A lot of people don't have experience in it, so it's hard to consistently kind of like some things you'd expect you just don't always get. But anyway, that's how it wasn't that I was like, oh, how do I get into esports? It was just pure passion, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned passion kind of a lot there, and I think anybody that knows you, James, knows that you have a lot of passions. I mean, scuba diving, watches, and peripherals as well. You're really into keyboards and mice, aren't you? Do you have kind of any favourites that you have at the moment?
Right now, I saw there's a guy called Tehar Types who makes customs. He made some, I think, Tfue, however you pronounce that. He made him like a keyboard for like $3,000, which is crazy to me. But he made
the dots.
The dots, yeah. I saw the dots on his Instagram. I was like, I got to get these dots, man.
Nice.
So there we go. This is my current. So the keyboard is what HyperX's Ducky, which they released last month. They sent me one. I tried to blag 3 because I got like a massive table with 3 computers on. But anyway, I got one. I threw the keys away straight away. No offense to the keys, but like my customs are gangster. I ain't got time for no stock keys. So I turn the lights off because they don't really suit the dots. But
I was going to ask you about that because I remember you tweeted and you didn't like the look of the LEDs, and I agree. Without the backlights, it gives way more sort of focus on the dots. It does look better.
Yeah. I'm going to put these dots on a separate one because this keyboard's really nice, and my 8-bit keys will go back on this one, and we'll put the lights back on. But they kindly sent me one of these, which is really, really awesome. It has red switches, which I haven't used before, but I'm quite impressed. So yeah, I love my 60% keyboards because I spent so much time playing on laptops. So if you think about distance, your arms would be away from each other or your hands, and then put a full size keyboard into the equation. It kind of just never comfortable with a full size keyboard. And I used to play on a bureau back in the day as well, so I literally didn't have the space. Like it was just kind of ridiculous how I used to play CS back in the day. But there we go.
Yeah, I think we've also got some other images of some of your keyboards and mice of the moment. I think maybe if you could walk us through this next one, which I love the color scheme of this.
Oh my.
Okay, so this is actually a Poker keyboard, POK3R, which you can buy on Amazon. It'll look nothing like this though. Sorry, my ass smell. Kick him out. So like the case, you can see the bottom part is orange. That's a custom case. It comes with a plastic case, but that really does change the typing experience. And some people at Mass Drop, where I get a lot of key stuff from, I had some fans there apparently, and they had this Counter-Strike key set, which was already sold out. But they hold some stock back for some random giveaways, and they kindly sent me that. And I got the blanks were, you can see the colors just, I think it's ever so slightly different, but you can't really notice it unless you stare at it. But anyway, so I got the blank mods, which I think is really nice. The rooster at the top right is a novelty.
I was going to ask, somewhere else. What is that?
It just
That's
all comes
amazing.
together. Yeah, it's a novelty rooster keycat, which is just it just works pretty well with the Counter-Strike set. Very relevant.
Yeah,
so it's very orange box. I like it. I like the branding.
Yeah, I love the orange. It's nice. And so all those keys, apart from the decoy and the flash, like the top keys are your obvious, but the defuse is there. The Molotov, that's my Molotov key, and reload and so on. So I love that keyboard. And it's Counter-Strike, obviously. So this is my #1 key set.
That's awesome. I think we've actually got another image of a mouse this time. What is this? What's this one about?
Okay, so this is the Zowie Tyloo edition. So this is heavily modified. Because if you I wish I'd made a video of taking one out of the case, because it comes with a bog standard cable, but it's folded like 15 times. So it's basically a massive zigzag, and those cables are pretty. So if you try to use that mouse and move it around, you're moving around like half the cable. So this is a paracord cable, which is kind of like a dead snake, which is basically has no resistance and doesn't get in your way. So it's a custom paracord cable which I installed myself. I had to use a lighter to get that shrink wrap into position, and it also has grip tape on both sides because these mice aren't the best in terms of grip. I don't have clammy hands, but still, like if you want to throw a little mouse around, if you're like a high descend Zorpa like I am, then you really do need some grip tape. So it's badminton grip, which I have taped onto each side of it with double-sided tape. So yeah, I didn't mess around with my stuff.
That's amazing. I've been really tempted to actually go for a wireless mouse recently as well because I've been hearing really good things about it, specifically the G Pro. My partner actually has one, so True Gamer Sam. I might be coming around and stealing that one day. But we also have a lovely shot of these unbelievably aesthetically pleasing keyboards. I love the pastel coloured one. Are those ice lollies on the keys?
Yeah, that's called
amazing.
DSA Ice Cream.
That's so good.
I've put you can see number 1, number 5, and number 0 are green keycaps to try and give me an idea of where my fingers are supposed to go. But this is like, I love this a lot more when I actually received it. It's amazing. The bottom one is based on a game called Hyperlight Drifter, but it has a bronze Mario keycap on the top left corner because I bought a bunch of those.
Cool.
The bottom right is Tron themed. I'm missing a small key for the... There was a novelty key, but it fell off. They keep falling off in the bags, I don't know. But that's a Tron theme one. The top left one is 8-bit, like a NES. This is what was on the HyperX, and that will go back on it. That's a XDA profile, which are really big keys. And then the top right one is also one of my favorites. It's a DSA Raindrop, which is amazing. I had to buy that secondhand. I really hunted hard for that one. That was like a grail one for me. So
that's awesome.
That's like half my keyboards.
Wow.
Oh, nice.
What a collection.
Yeah.
That's
amazing. There. You weren't lying, Freya.
I truly agree. I subscribed to the entire idea about the paracord, by the way. There was one epic LAN, and Joe Ducky Loose, Lazza, he saw me playing and went, mate, you need paracord. It's literally the ideal way to play. I've gone the pink,
very nice.
Very nice.
With the hyperglides on the bottom as well.
Oh, I got the hyperglides, yes. These are really hard to find because of all the COVID stuff. People are like, where'd you get them from? Where'd you get the hyperglides from? Like sending DMs to my favourite people, like, before I put it on, I've got 25 minutes.
That's what it is. I ordered like 4 packs of them last time they were in stock. I'm just like, I'll keep these to one side. These will be safe. Never tell them in case they rob me.
I think my favourite thing that I received at the Face It Major was actually the fidget spinner keycap. It's on my escape key to remind me if I'm toxic and if I want to leave a game, just take a spin. You'll be fine.
Oh man,
that was amazing.
I've got 5 of those on my desk right now, actually.
We should make a whole keyboard out of them.
They were so popular. They were really awesome.
Speaking of, because we also made some actual Face It Major keycaps. I think it was the premium attendees got some of them. But one day, somebody in our office decided to replace every single keycap on somebody's key with this one Face It Major keycap.
That's nice.
So every single key. It took them so long. He just came in and shook his head, just like, what am I going to do? But the funniest thing is, he still uses it. He didn't even take it back. Yeah.
Nice.
So he just knows where everything is now.
True gamer.
Very on brand.
Tell you what, here's the nerdy version, by the way. For a broadcast, I can't say I've got any nice keyboards, but this is a little audio controller. So it's got slidey slides.
Nice.
To control audio levels. There you go. There's my version, not quite as glam for a broadcast perspective.
Nice.
That's awesome.
I've got the little the bass level adjustment here. Hang on.
We're going
shorts to the outfit. I know. I've come off the cam. There he is. The demonic sticker that's been on there for like 8 years. It's literally the only keyboard I'll ever use. Every time I see one of these 7Gs in stock, I buy them. He's very basic, but he does me well.
Pastels,
I like it. I like some nice flavour there. Nice, very nice.
Lovely colours. Oh, you know what we should have done? We should have got people to send in their keyboards and get James to rate them. Maybe we'll do that as a segment. If you want to make a regular appearance, James, we'll do that.
I'm down.
But so something that is also super interesting about you is you post a lot of your old photos sort of from your childhood or from sort of back in the day esports, and we've actually put together a collection of them that we would love you to talk through and maybe just give us some context behind them, because there are some absolute bangers in here. We'll be starting off if we can get I was looking through to try and find some of these images. I don't know whether we've included the one of you in a gorilla suit running a marathon. I think you've told me the story behind that.
Okay.
But that was absolutely fantastic. So I think I think we're going to take a look at the first image that we're getting up. Oh, you've got poker in the same gorilla suit, I believe.
Strong.
So I did a charity run in this gorilla suit, and everybody was in a suit as well, to raise money for endangered gorillas and so on. To be honest, like half of me wanted just to have the gorilla suit, and it's like it's for a good cause. So I raised a few £100. It's hard to run in that thing, man. It was so steamy in there. But every year I played it basically in all the semi-legal, illegal poker clubs in London, of which this was the second one after the first one. The gut shot closed down in Farringdon. This one opened up called the International by Old Street. And it was very we had a big bunch of regulars, and every year we would have a fancy dress tournament. They actually tried to, I think they were aiming to have a revival of it like a month ago when I was going to be in America. Well, I was in America, but I don't know if they cancelled it because of COVID. But anyway, so you can see the name tag. I was actually playing, I think this was this is a 3v3 tournament. And I was on a team called the Stinkers, because when we'd have a bad beat, we'd refer to it as a stinker. And I was playing with the guy who ran the whole thing, and he won it for all of us, which is pretty sick. But this is my poker face with the glasses on.
Well, I guess it covers your poker face, mate. To be honest, it's really quite good for that.
Yeah.
I hope you won the fancy.
I had my rangefinder around my neck as well. I got some nice black and white photos from that event on my blog.
That's awesome. Oh, we've got an oldie, a throwback with your boy DDK. Where's this? Oh,
this is a classic. So this was our first office well, it wasn't an office, it was a studio in London. It was an office, we shared many offices with Twitch, and this was just off of Carnaby Street, and basically the office was theirs, and the studio room was where we broadcasted from. So when I was, these were the first years for me. Dan had worked for them in Milan prior to this, but when I was transitioning over from real estate, you can see my DreamHack t-shirts from the DreamHack events I'd done with the FGC. So basically, I had an idea that we could do some kind of, I think Tosspot was commentating maybe with Dan, and I was like, okay, well, we could use the office and have this kind of like analysis area. And I had a laugh and said, well, basically, I think the team should have gone to the places you can see, which was every part of the map as a joke. So yeah, we had this kind of so we had this kind of breakout area, and we're just having a bit of fun there. I still have that watch behind me, by the way.
You can draw on the map here.
Yeah, you can draw on the map. That's just why back then. I used to spam developers with this picture a lot during the no drawing on a map phase. At one point, I won't say which developer it was, but I sent them an email about a bug, and they replied and said, thanks for the info. I assume the game is perfect apart from this, which was a massive troll. They were trolling me for a while with that, but there we go. This must have been 2015 or 16. Oh, crikey.
Where is this?
Retro GT. I think
it looks like Eurogamer, doesn't it, or something?
It's the shirts that remind me of Eurogamer on the staff shirts.
Oh my god, this must be from I don't even know whose picture this is. So Replay, I remember the guy who used to run that. I don't know if this is a Replay event or a Replay stand at another event. So I'm not really sure. Oh god, look at the bottom of those jeans. They're so long, it's horrible.
Those boot cuts.
I'm so upset.
I love
pulled my sound out. 1 second. So this is probably in Manchester, but I'm not sure what event this is. But I did a bunch of events for Replay as well. I want to say I did Street Fighter tournaments there. I can't actually remember. Funnily enough, okay, so you see that Retro GT stand? The mug I am using today is actually from Retro GT, which they don't sell on their website because it's got copyrighted images on. But there we go. It's my Ryu versus
limited
Ken.
edition now. Then
So I'm guessing it was a Street Fighter event, but I can't remember which one it was.
So this would have been like peak Arms House era. Yeah.
Okay, so this is pretty funny. This is the first time I worked with PGL. So I went to Azerbaijan, Baku in Azerbaijan, with the guy on the far right who is an absolute lunatic. And that's Aussie Lino, and also F Word, who is one of the main Street Fighter commentators. So I was commentating Tekken and Street Fighter with them. It was a women-only Tekken tournament where the girl who qualified... No, there was a girl from a particular country who was literally the only person who turned up to the qualifier, and therefore she got flown to Azerbaijan because she was the only person who entered. That was pretty funny. But you can see we got some of the Dota casters there and other things. It was funny. Everybody was taking a picture of this, apart from Artosis, who was just trolling all of us. He was taking a picture of us, taking a picture of all the shots while we were all being morons. That was an amazing trip. That was really crazy. Azerbaijan was an awesome place.
I was going to ask. I've never really heard much about it. You know, people visiting it. What was it like there?
It was really cool. So basically, we were in an annex building where they had built this building for the Eurovision Song Contest. Yeah, they held it. And so this was the IESF, which is kind of like they try and do like an Olympic type thing of gaming. Some of you may have heard of them. Sometimes they threaten to do Counter-Strike and then it doesn't happen most of the time. So Azerbaijan was crazy. It's a kind of place where, people, they would keep everything tidy and there'd be no homeless in the main city. You'd find a guard standing under a bridge just to make sure, everything was fine. It was a wild place. And this was the second studio we had where we moved with Twitch. Yeah. We moved with Twitch to the other side of Carnaby Street, and then we had Threat for an entire season. This was a tank top day.
Yeah, did you all coordinate this? You didn't just accidentally turn up? You were all in tanks?
No. I'm already like the fourth person of your crew under the desk right there.
Yeah, I forgot about the horsehead days of the Face It studio as well. It was a shame, partly with this studio, because our first one, we just had a flat table, and it was awesome because we could use props and just have a lot of fun. Whereas this one was slanted, so we couldn't put stuff on top of it because it would fall off. So I kind of limited what we could do, but we still had fun here. And what's funny about this is that we're all sitting on stools, and when we were doing the North American broadcast, I'd get uncomfortable and I'd take my jeans off mid-broadcast, and Dan, I'd be sitting there with my boxer shorts, and Dan would just be looking at me while he's commentating like, what the hell is going on?
God.
And he never got used to it because I did it all the time, but he would always be like, why is this happening? Slightly uncomfortable.
That was amazing. Oh, this is a classic. I remember watching this. I loved this deck.
Yeah,
this is awesome.
This was a shame in a way. Well, it started off as a shame because basically these were the DDoS days, and I think this is basically, I'm going to blame Reese for this because somebody had won a prize, and obviously these were the days where everybody used Skype, and I had to log on to Skype to get the details of the prize winner or send them the prize something. And in those days, Skype, for some reason, you could find out the last 5 IPs a user had logged into Skype from. That was just publicly available on the internet. So I logged into Skype for all of 30 seconds, and then there was a guy who was salty that he didn't win, and he decided to DDoS us during the finals. He got doxxed, and people put his info on the HLTV forum to some guy in Sweden, and they sent me his address and all sorts, and it was like, people were going nuts, man. It was they were incredibly loyal to Face. It was pretty cool, to be honest. I was surprised, and it was awesome. But so this was like, we were just constantly getting DDoS. We couldn't play the games, so the guys just came on and we just had a laugh with the props that we had in the studio already, and we had a great time. I just had like an impromptu show. I called Olafmeister Crims, which greatly offended him, and we just had a fantastic time. So
that's awesome. I love Dan's face in that as well.
The BDK as well.
Yeah. These are the days in Paddington Rec. I went to school in Maida Vale near Kilburn, which was kind of crazy, but this is the Mandem. We used to play football after school. I was mainly a goalkeeper for a very long time. God, skinny my arms are, Jesus. But yeah, these are my bros. I've met up with some of them in America. Yeah, we.
How old are you?
I don't know, man. I must have been pretty freaking young considering how skinny we were. Maybe like 13 or something. We were all pretty young in our. In that era. That was it's funny how cool this picture is actually, considering how violent that period of time was. Yeah, that's a pretty cool picture. So I'm always a footy guy. I missed out on all the football in LA. It all got cancelled because of the COVID stuff. Yeah. But you can see I have this Hello Kitty Fnatic jersey, which is actually I'm going to wear when I play football. It's got my name on the back as well. So I look forward to being able to play football again. Yeah.
That's awesome. I kind of wanted to talk to you both now. We kind of have you both here. Some on camera and somebody who's typically behind the camera. how would you recommend, if somebody wanted to pursue a career in your two respective areas, what kind of advice would you give them? Perhaps it's difficult because right now in this day and age, it's so difficult to be getting into that sort of live production side, as we were sort of speaking about, Sam. But what kind of advice would you give them into getting into your kind of specific role? Sam, I'll start with you.
Sure. So yeah, I think the first thing that, like, whenever this question is asked, it is a tricky one because, like I always say, we've all had experiences of like weird entries into the industry, and we've always like found our own path. And like some of it is about, as Jacky said, luck. I think you have to pair luck with a certain sort of skill set and a certain personality you already have. Luck by itself or being in the right place at the right time won't just bring you in. But the things you can do to control it. I think be really conscious about what you want to do and where you want to go in the industry. There is no such thing as working in esports. You are always doing something in particular. You're either, a producer or a director or a on-screen talent or a product manager or an event manager, right? There's loads of different roles in esports. So research what is it you want to do. And then I've obviously taken the route of starting off being employed. So my first official work in esports was really employed from the start. And then I went freelance afterwards. And I think that is a really important way to go. Because something that James talked about when he was talking about his career was that he thought it was really beneficial that have business acumen that then helps in their job and work in esports. And I think that is so relevant, not just business acumen, but having outside experience in other jobs and industries is probably the biggest thing that will help you in esports, because there's a lot of people who have only exclusively worked in esports, and no disrespect to them at all, but I think having that alternative point of view sometimes to complement your skill set that is exclusively within esports is so useful. I'm very grateful for the experience I had before working in esports and production that I use a job now. And equally, having worked for an esports company at ESL, the opportunities that I got from ESL to develop myself and my skill set were fantastic. So big shout out for those guys. Those 3 years at ESL developed me as a person and a professional massively, and enabled me to then go freelance this year and continue my career freelance. But it is risky, right? Especially in the current climate. I wouldn't recommend freelancing at the moment, purely because unfortunately, if you know the industry, there's been a couple of businesses that have either reduced capacity or closed in the UK. So there's a lot of people currently looking for especially production work in the UK, and there's not a lot of events happening, of course, in the UK right now. So opportunities, I would say, are low compared to what they have been in the past. So just be cautious with your ambition, I think, is the most important thing. But yeah, commitment, getting out there, doing something that you can do off your own back, whether that's making YouTube videos, whether that's even live streaming from home. I mean, even like James said, like either like live streaming something from home or buying a very basic kit and finding opportunities to use this live production kit you have, whether it's like small community events or just proving you can do something. That's the main thing. When someone asks you, hey, have you had any experience in doing any sort of production or streaming or whatever you want to do, the ability to say, yeah, I've done this thing. It was a tournament. I helped out. I brought some cameras, whatever it is. Just the opportunity that you say you have done it versus you could do it.
Exactly. I think it might have even been you I was speaking to about it. And it's actually some of the best advice I've ever been given is not going up to somebody and saying, oh, I would like to do this. I want to do this. It's saying, I have done this. Here's the evidence. What I want to do next. So important, especially in esports. It's been absolutely fantastic to speak to you today, Sam. It's awesome to get a little bit of insight into what sort of goes on behind the scenes as well.
Considering, I appreciate it. It's nice for the production team to get some love behind the stage.
Exactly.
And on behalf of everyone I work with and all the faces we never see, like just a last final shout out before we hand over and James can answer. Like it's there's a lot of people that are involved in esports production that just never get any credit. There's a huge amount of people who are very skilled at what they do and who work a lot of hours, who are usually the first in, last out. So from me to all the people I've worked with in production, you guys are awesome, and let's do it again soon once this is all over, this COVID
Yeah,
thing.
Fingers crossed. I can't wait for Lans to get back on again. It's going to be so cool. Just some sort of final things before we say goodbye to you. Is there anything that you kind of want to shout out that you're going to be doing in the future?
Right now, things are coming in super last minute. Of course, I said like loads of events are council right now, and no one's really planning physical events, so it's difficult. Some of the stuff that I was working on before that have been postponed is I love working with my friends out in India. I do a lot of work with a group out there called Nodwin Gaming, and they're doing some really exciting things at PUBG Mobile. So before this all kicked off, I was doing a lot with PUBG and PUBG Mobile. For some reason, that's kind of my main thing I slipped into. Really fun games to produce a battle royale because, of course, you've got like 20, 30, whatever teams on stage, depending on the tournament format, and so many players at once, it just becomes this massive beast to manage. So that was really fun. So I hope to get out there and finish off that work that was cancelled during this time. As I said, I finished some stuff. I actually was working with Netflix the other day, which was cool.
Oh, wow.
Helped them to launch Space Force, doing a little thing with some of the cast there. That's fun. So it really could be anything. That wasn't actually anything to the esports at all. So this remote broadcasting has been super varied. But yeah, it's all very much like up in the air right now. Opportunities are coming week by week, month by month. So fingers crossed we can all resume it when this COVID thing finishes.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that we'll hopefully see each other as soon as lands are back on. Thank you so much for taking this to join us. Unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to you, but we're stopping there. We're going to get our third guest on. It's, of course, Veracity.
Like that. Choose your fighter.
User left your channel.
Whoa, what was that? Whoa! One enemy remaining. Woo!
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, Jasmine. It's been a while since I've last spoken to you. How have you been?
I've been great, thanks. It's been ages since I've spoken to you guys or seen you at events and stuff.
It feels like way too long. I'm missing the LAN so much. I think that's the common theme of the show. We just want to get the LANs back on as soon as we can. But sort of speaking about your role in esports, you have quite a varied role. I've typically seen you in that sort of admin role. How did you get into that?
So I initially started off volunteering at Insomnia events. But that was sort of, so the reason I started volunteering in the first place was I went to Insomnia with a few friends of mine just like to check out the expo and see what the event was like, because my brother had been previously, and I remember him coming back with crates of Jolt. Jolt was the best energy, and now you can't find it anywhere. But yeah, I always wanted to go. So I ended up going with a group of friends of mine and checked out the expo hall. And I kind of decided, like, I watched esports anyway. I played games anyway. So yeah, I was just like, yeah, why not? Why not just try and volunteer and see what goes on behind the scenes? And the first game I was put on was actually Rocket League.
Oh, cool.
I had never played Rocket League before. I had no idea, like, how to do anything with Rocket League. But like you guys had said previously, esports, a lot of it is just say yes to any opportunity that comes your way. Say yes and learn on the job and you get the swing of things. So that was what I did. And that was where I met John Kelly. Big up John Kelly. Mm-hmm. Great guy. Yeah, so I didn't know at the time that he was the CS admin. I knew that he played CS, so we were playing a few games of CS against each other. And then it wasn't until like a few hours later, he was like, would you like to come and admin CS for me next event? I was like, wait, what? I was like, oh my God, I would love to. So yeah, from there I started volunteering Insomnia events with him. And he started asking me to help him out with Epic LAN. He was like, don't worry, you'll be fine. I'll be with you every step of the way. I'll teach you everything. So yeah, I started volunteering at Epic LAN. And then I think there was a few ESL people that were attending like Epic LANs and Insomnias. And then that was kind of how more tournament organizers kind of started reaching out to me and asking if I... Where's your jungle gone?
I accidentally deleted my background while you were talking, sorry.
My goodness. Making a machete to the background. It's all gone wrong.
Sorry, please continue.
But yeah, so I just started working with more and more tournament organizers, and then Gfinity and stuff were like, oh, would you like to do FIFA events, Call of Duty events, and then there was PES events. So yeah, it was just kind of, once you start, you can't stop. And I'm very much like, I love learning new things. So for me, it was like, the more I can learn about a new game and like new communities and stuff like that, that was what I loved, the fact that I'm constantly learning. And like, yeah, and then it just kind of blew up from there.
That's awesome. You kind of mentioned Counter-Strike there. Is it kind of always been the game that you were sort of hoping to get into, the game of choice?
Yeah, when I first applied to be a volunteer for Insomnia, I put down my game of choice as either League of Legends or Counter-Strike, but I've been playing CS since like before Source, so I played a bit of 1.6.
You came from Crossfire, didn't you? I remember you used to play Crossfire with
I remember the first time we met, you were like, I recognise your voice.
Because you told me, and I was like, hang on a minute. Did you play Crossfire? And you were like, yes.
That's amazing. Yeah, that was so weird, like, because I hadn't actually been, I had met at LAN, you were like, I recognise your voice. I was like, oh my god.
The wonderful world of esports. I love that. Well, we were sort of talking about the role that an admin kind of entails during a day. Can you kind of walk us through what a typical day sort of in your job is?
So it kind of depends on which tournament organizer you're working with. So like Insomnia events will include stuff like making sure everybody sticks to the schedule, explaining the format, handing out server IPs, like from start to finish. But then when you're working like with a much bigger team, like Face It, for example, it's more or less just like fixing tech issues, making sure players are on servers on time, and like just being really quick on your feet. If there is an issue, you need to communicate it to like production and the rest of your team, and like let them know how long it's going to take for you to fix the problem. So yeah, it kind of varies based on like the game and which tournament organizer you're working with and stuff like that.
Well, if you're not familiar here on this show, we love a good challenge. And we thought, what better challenge to have than to make you guess which player it is, but only by the back of their head. Because, you know, we thought laterally, you spend a lot of time just standing behind players, you know, making sure everything's going smoothly. So we've got a few images of players, and it's just the back of their heads, and you've got to guess who it is. I saw your face drop as soon as we said that. Well, there may be some hints around it, so I think we're going to bring the first image up. These are all Counter-Strike players. I just like to face this.
Can I have a... he played for NIP?
Yes, there we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Forest?
Yes, there you go. See? Good at this.
Yes.
Perfect. I think that was at ECS season 6 in Texas, but obviously it's the bun gives it away, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, on to image number 2. I'm going to warn you, they do get more difficult from here on out. Who is this?
Dupree?
Close.
Oh no! Magus.
Yes.
I feel so silly. I got that
wrong. No, but you know, you were using the Astralis, the colours around it. I like it. You're resourceful. I'm very impressed. Image number 3. Who is this? This is very hard.
You weren't kidding when you said it gets more difficult, huh? Can I have a clue?
Oh, I'm trying to think of...
It's a man.
James, have you got any clues? Do you know who it could be?
Guardian for a second, but I don't think it's Guardian. I think it's head of
No, it's not Guardian. But I see why. Okay, they used to play for Veracity.
What was the jersey? It's like orange with a black stripe.
Okay, I wouldn't go for that because that's a lanyard.
Okay.
But I see why you're going for it. Maybe, you know, think along those lines.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Steph.
Yeah.
That's a hard one.
There we go.
Big man Rory.
Okay. I was literally thinking it, and I was like, nah, surely not.
How about the neck?
Okay, image number 4. Who is this? This is hard.
I know who that is immediately.
Yeah.
That's an NIP jersey.
It is.
I think I know where this is as well. I know exactly. It's a signing session. I know exactly where that is.
Yeah. If you stood in that, you know exactly where it is.
I don't want to guess and be wrong, but at the same time, if I don't guess, then I'm going to be wrong anyway.
You get multiple guesses. It's fine.
Lecrae?
No, but I see why you've gone for that. Think about the beard. Who's got a really, really good beard?
Oh god, now I'm stumped. I don't usually look at beards and like rate them.
Yeah, to be fair, you do just see the back of the head. So you see the beard.
Usually I'm looking at the back of their jersey if I need to call them. I don't like visualize the back of their head and know who they are. Yeah,
anybody else? No idea? Who is it, James?
Exist.
That is right. It's Exist. And of course, he's standing in the signing area at the SSC Arena Wembley, which is.
I took this picture.
Did you actually?
No.
I was like, what? I don't think you did.
I have that ECS scarf as well. Ooh.
Question number 5. Okay, this is really hard. Good trim though.
I'm unfamiliar with this.
It's a tight trim, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wait,
close.
do you guys know the answers?
I know who it is, but Jackie and James don't.
We've been kept in the dark.
This is a tough one.
Yeah.
Okay, what team? What team did he play for?
Navi.
Simple.
No, that's not.
It is simple.
Oh, it is,
yeah.
I know. I thought,
man.
to be honest, I thought it was simple before you said Navi. But I was like, does his hair go that short? Like at the back?
This is
I
2018
didn't think it was
simple.
that short.
He has kept it close.
This was for, I think, the major final. So he obviously got a fresh trim for that. Back in London. Good times. I think we've got one more. Okay, there is a little bit of a clue here.
It's not Smear. I know that much. It's not Smear.
Oh.
I feel like God B's got darker hair.
Is it Tabson?
It is.
Yeah.
It
Nice.
is Tabson. Very nice. Walking down the halls at the SSC Arena.
Look at the swagger on that.
He has got a walk on it, hasn't he?
Oh, man.
I wish we had some video of that. Oh, this is almost impossible. And I even got these, and that took me a moment.
What's going on here, man? This is
that a player?
It is a player, yeah. It's an interesting trim, isn't it?
It's got some varying length to it.
Yeah.
Maybe going for the layers, but not quite.
It's like halfway. It's in between two places, you know.
Any guesses?
I'm surprised we don't see more Barnets like this in gaming. To be honest, people are taking care of themselves.
Is it a Cillian?
It's not, but I see why you would have said that.
Okay, I have no idea who this one. Oh, no, wait.
Because I'm thinking it's an SK jersey or something along those lines. That's what I'm basing this on.
Is it a Dane? I think it's a Danish guy.
Yes.
I think.
James, you're good at this.
Is it A? It's not AZ. AZ's hair's longer.
No, but.
Kirby?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's Kirby.
Cageaby.
This was a.
How do I know that? That's so weird.
And the last one, again, a very, very tough one.
Serato.
Oh my god, you got it in one.
Wow.
Was it the glasses?
Yeah. And the hair as well. I can see the front of his hair from the back of his head.
He's goosed us all there with a little OK hand as well.
I'm sorry, I'm good at weird things.
Amazing. James, and Jasmine as well, but James, you just got them like that.
I'm impressed. I'm very impressed.
Obviously spend a lot of time staring at the back of players' heads. I don't know.
I forget most things, but I guess some things I remember, like the back.
That is amazing. Getting back onto the topic of your kind of journey into the esports scene and your typical kind of job. I know that a while ago we were actually discussing you were doing some stage hosting, weren't you?
Yeah. I was doing some stage hosting for Epic Land. So, like I said before, I love learning new things, and I feel like one of my goals before was, at first it was like to admin MDL, and then I did that, and then it was like, okay, do like an international event, and I did that, and then it was to do a major, and then I did that, and now I'm just kind of like, I want to try something different. I want to get into like interviewing and hosting and things like that. So yeah, I contacted Epic Land, and I was like, hi, please take a chance on me. And they were like, yeah, sure, you can come and do some stage hosting. So yeah, I went to Epic. I did my debut for stage hosting and interviewing, and I kind of feel like it was scary at first because I did the whole because we usually have like the Phoenix talk show that Gumpster usually does, but Gump wasn't there that event. So it was literally me on the stage by myself, coming up with all these questions for StarCraft players, the previous results, CS players. So it was I loved getting to learn more about their communities, and you see a huge difference in how they treat the StarCraft players at the end of that LAN event. All stayed around to get a photo together on stage, the whole all of the participants, and it melted my heart. It was
That's
so
amazing.
cute. Jackie, could you imagine RCS players doing that?
Mate, they'd just be headbutting each other straight to spoons. There would be no love, just all aggression in UK CS.
As soon as they get grooved, it'd be gone.
I think that's a good example for anybody who asks how you get to say Like, you need to just get off your own arse and make it happen for yourself. I can't give you better advice than that, because like if you're not proactive like she is, then you're not going to there's no like path or whatever. You need to just go and make stuff happen for yourself, as she has been and is doing. So that's like a great example of how you find success in esports.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's also just a matter of like, even if you start and you're not the best at something, at least you're doing it and you're putting yourself into a position where you can learn and get better, right? So this is sort of what I was saying to Freya. Obviously, like with you, James, obviously when Reese contacted me back to do the Face It stuff years ago, that was one of the first like studio events I'd ever been in. Obviously a weird environment for this kid that turned up in a suit that was far too big for him. No idea what I'm doing, trying to cast North American CS. And I wasn't the best at it, but you keep putting that time in, you learn, you then realize, okay, I need to actually sort of take my chances with this. Email more people, say you want to do more stuff, and just be nice to everyone along the way. And if people take that chance on you, they realize, okay, we can bring him back. He'll get better as time goes on. I think that's one of the things that people like sort of don't do. They won't push themselves because they're scared they're not good enough. But it's like, if you never take that chance, you'll never be good enough.
You need to do it to have a measure of how far you need to improve. If you're hesitant, then it's just not going to happen. You're going to watch the world go by.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, you go ahead, Jasmine. Sorry.
No, I was just agreeing with him. Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of going to ask you, James, sort of specifically for casting as well, which is something that, you know, admittedly in this kind of situation, it's a little bit harder to do now that there's not so many LAN tournaments going on. What would you kind of do in Asian esports to get into casting? Where do you think you'd start?
I would commentate some matches, commentate some old matches. Doesn't have to be live. Or do something. It depends on a game as well. But I would find something to commentate, even if it's like Go TV of a matchmaking game, for example, of Counter-Strike, just like whatever. Just find something. There's plenty of content out there. Find an old game, find a demo, find whatever you want. Go over like a classic, maybe not like a main necessarily, but I don't know, a game from 3 years ago or whatever. Like, just find some content to do, because then you'll be able to even just do it for yourself and then review it afterwards and listen to, like, if you're lucky enough to kind of see things you don't like or see things that you think you should change and so on, then you don't necessarily need like a live game or something, or even to show it to someone else to improve like off the bat. Some people will need, you know, I mean, guidance from your peers is always helpful, but doing something is better than doing nothing. So people are like, there's nothing to commentate. There's plenty of things to commentate. You've got like 1 million demos to commentate. So you just need to be proactive enough to do it.
Yeah, I think that's the awesome thing about esports as well, is, you know, we've got all these different platforms that, you know, as long as you have a decent PC and a sort of a reasonable setup, doesn't have to be anything amazing, you can produce stuff yourself. You know, it's free to make a YouTube channel, all these different things, Twitch channels and stuff. I think that's one thing that is so awesome about esports, is it's sort of its openness and its accessibility. If you're willing to sort of push yourself and try new things, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, well, you gotta forge your own path, right? In that sense of like, no one's going to do it for you and just give you an opportunity to do something. Just look into it, find a game that you resonate with as well, which is another big thing. Like, you see a lot of people that will jump onto a new game just because it's new. If it's not necessarily something you're passionate about, that's going to come through. Like, you'll notice that obviously someone's not really invested in what they're doing. So at first and foremost, like, esports is kind of a passion project for a lot of people, and it should always be that at the beginning, until eventually you can turn it into a point where it's like, it's stable for you and you know where you want to go from there. But just do something you love and keep doing it. If you want to be a commentator, commentate stuff.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it is the time to say goodbye to James. But before we let you go, is there anything you'd like to shout out that you're going to be doing in the upcoming weeks?
We've got more Red Bull Flick broadcasts coming up. We've got one this weekend, and then another one, which I don't know if it's been announced yet or not, but look out for that on the social media channels. On another note, I saw that we now have a Visa debit card in Russia with Face It logo on, which is really awesome. So now I want to get a Russian bank account. If anybody can help me with that.
That is so awesome. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time to join us, James. It's always amazing to get to speak to you and just hear some of your stories, because super, super awesome. But that means it's time to bring on our fourth guest. Please make some noise for Oliver Seddon.
But Base is getting some fantastic rockets, but finally there's the return from Zron, getting his first frag on the board.
Of what we've seen here, highlights, my friends, of what we've just seen here between Jorge and Sean. You can see they both had a pretty good time throughout this game and throughout this match, indeed, as we saw the ramp deck firing on all cylinders early, building out an enormous board, but you can see the massive build.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, Ollie. It's been pretty sad that we haven't been in the office recently. I haven't been able to see you in person. How have you been doing?
Yeah, not bad. Just kind of, I don't know, existing. I think everyone is doing exactly that as well. Breathing, existing, gaming. What more do you need?
Exactly. You know, there's the three fundamentals in life. I love that. I also heard that you finished university recently, right?
Yeah, I finished last week. It's it's kind of bittersweet because, although university has been a big part of my life, it's never been core sense of why I've been in London. I realistically always wanted just to kind of get into the esport or television industry, and I thought, I come from a little town called Grimsby, so I had no chance of getting into the industry there unless I wanted to be a fisherman. So I had to kind of move to London and get options here. So that's what I'm trying to do anyway.
That's awesome. So was it before you kind of went to uni that you were looking at esports? Was it kind of because you did TV right at uni?
Yeah.
So kind of that wider industry, or were you always specifically focused on esports?
Well, I never wanted to be the guy to go to do an esports degree. That was never an agenda. So I wanted to do something maybe slightly more practical, and film and television. Although not the best university degree, it was good enough for what I wanted to do.
But it's relevant, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was. I don't know. Ultimately, it wasn't even the degree. It was purely just to be in London, and right at the very start, I wanted to go down the television and film route. But in all honesty, I don't really particularly care about movies that much, nor do I watch an incredible amount of TV shows either. And one thing that I'd rather do is go home and watch some, a Twitch channel, or go on and do some esports or something like that. So I feel like I always kind of pivoted around esports, but I think my Grimbarian little town state, mindset was under the impression that it was impossible to do that. So it wasn't till a little bit later on I kind of discovered that maybe I could do this, and I'm just trying to still kind of get there now.
Yeah, well, you've done a number of things in terms of esports. You're normally in the sort of behind the scenes, the broadcast kind of area. What do you kind of enjoy focusing on most in terms of your role in esports?
I don't know. So mainly I do replay operator, replay. So I've done replays for Quake Pro League now, which Jacky is familiar with, and recently I've been doing Rainbow Six as well. But then also I've done video editing and videography for Face It as well. So I worked on ECS 7, PUBG Global Summit, ECS 8. I did the documentaries, which was Freya's voice for. That was straight last time.
So sorry. It was the worst situation, wasn't it? Because we were in if any of you guys are, I'm sure you're all familiar with the studio in London where you do the Quake broadcast from. We were using that studio to film these team documentaries for all the teams at ECS Season 8, which was so much fun to do. But we realised that there's actually a massive gap in the ceiling where there should be a wall that meets the ceiling, but actually it goes through to another studio, and there were the loudest women in that studio that I have ever heard. So they were getting picked up every time. I felt so sorry for you, Ollie. I think Mike had read some as well. And I'd be going, doing my scripting, reading out the script, and then somebody would start laughing, or somebody would sneeze, even in the background, and it was all ruined. We had to do it again. So massive props to you, Ollie, for getting through all that.
The great thing about that was, I'd be editing it thinking, okay, this is the official version that we had, and then halfway through, someone would make a noise, and you just go insane, and I'd be like, all right, we need to cut that, we need to move it forward. That's not the clip we need.
A number of times.
It was really incredibly stressful, because we also had bands that kept on coming past as well that you'd hear, and it was awful. And then the wind as well, the metal door, the wind would
oh my god, yeah. And we tried to get I don't even know what it was. Why did we have a massive long stick of wood, and we were just trying to get the door to stop rattling?
Yeah, there were some takes I would press record and then run over there and just hold the door shut whilst up against it, trying to keep it stable. It was really
so replay operator, videographer, and door holder. That's what your skills said. But no, that was really awesome as well, because that was such a I don't think we kind of realised when we sort of took that project on how dense it was going to be. What was that kind of that experience, kind of editing those and trying to sort of source all those clips?
I think I have a really terrible time management issue where I think I'm good, and then I'm really, really not. So like quite often I'll kind of be under the impression that everything's going smoothly and I've got everything on lockdown, and then it gets to like I don't know 2 days before, and I'm like, oh, this is not going to go the way I wanted it to. So, that last day was a very long day. I think because like you were in America by then.
Yes.
I think it was Thursday. You wanted the first documentary in by, and I was pretty much up all night doing that in the office.
God.
I think it was fun. I got a pizza. I was chilling. Coca-Cola's in the fridges. It was golden. That's all you need.
I love how you put a positive spin on it. I can always trust you to do that.
Positive guy.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen you not just like smiling from side to side at the studio. You're always happy.
You've got to be. I remember working in a fish and chip shop as a waiter, and I got put in the Grimsby Telegraph, which is a local newspaper, for Smiler of the Year.
Man.
Wait, literally world's happiest man.
It was Smiler of the Year, and they had like a little paragraph next to my name, and the first line was a credit to the young generation.
Oh,
so,
wow. Have you like cut that out? It's like a clipping. Please
I
tell
actually
me
haven't. I think the owner of the fish and chip shop has it framed up, laminated though, so I can go there and see it.
Oh, that's so cute.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah,
a VT feature. Yeah, down there.
Top of the scene.
That's the next story time. That's what it's going to be. Yeah, we were kind of mentioned earlier, we're sort of speaking about it with Stan or with James, that obviously now is a very tricky time to sort of be getting into esports, just due to the global situation. There not being so many LAN events going on. Obviously, you started, you've been working with Face It since, was it late 2018 or 2019?
It was like April 2019 was the first time
for PUBG.
Summit.
Yeah. So what has your kind of experience been like? How did you kind of first get in contact with Face It?
Honestly, like, I say it again, Grimsby, small town, no industry. So I had to just kind of make my own way into it. So I just tweeted a lot of people. I didn't know any names, so like I didn't even have the luxury of knowing like I don't know Reese's name or Mike's names that I know has been mentioned before in the podcast. So I ultimately just would go on Twitter and type "Face It" producer and director, and then just try and find the people who were in their bio. And I happened to come across I think it was Andy who tweeted, who's a technical producer for Face It. And he tweeted saying that he needed some help for PUBG Global Summit, and I just messaged him, and luckily then he got me in contact with Mike and Reese, and then I had an interview with Mike, and then I got the job just being a runner. And what's astonishing is I before I went to esports, I like a decent amount of experience in television where I was like kind of producing assistants, but before that I was running. And running is very different in esports than it is in television. So in television, you purely just make coffee and shut up and hold up. And don't let anyone in, don't let anyone out. Just stay still. Don't talk, don't move, do your job. And, I kind of expected that in esports. So when I came in and did my job, I was working with a bunch of Swedish people who were kind of like the media team. And I remember asking them for a coffee if they wanted a coffee for the first time. And they looked at me in pure shock and fear. They had no idea that someone was going to get their coffee for them. And then, it wasn't that long before they gave me a camera and just told me to go film some stuff. And like the kind of like main guy, who like the content director called David, he said, stop asking him for coffees, he's going to go film now. So that was kind of the way in, and then it just never stopped from there. And then they got in contact with me, and I got the opportunity to go to Stockholm and do some filming for them. And then I've just been really fortunate enough that Reese and Mike have just continued giving me work, whether it be video editing, videography, or replay operative. Like I think I'm very fortunate, in all honesty. There's been much work.
Well, it's also that though, like it's completely the same as what Jasmine was saying and what James was describing to, right? The idea that you went out there, you shook your shot at every opportunity and asked if there was work, kept on following up as well. Like even when we're at the studio weekly now, right? Whenever there's something that's going on, you're always just like, Reese, is there anything I can help out with? Do you want me to do this? Do you need me to do this? You're always the first people to put yourselves forward, which is the best way to do it, because no one else is going to try and push you, right? You've got to push yourselves. I think both of you have done that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's all you can do. Like, I think I always say to people that I don't think I do much more than anyone else. I just tweeted people. I was laying in bed. I wasn't doing I wasn't jogging. I wasn't sprinting to studios. I just tweeted. And like, I think all you need to do is a little bit more than everyone else. And when the majority is not doing anything, it makes it relatively easy. Obviously, you have to be competent when you're doing the job. But that's all you can do.
Yeah, it's about sort of taking those first proactive steps as well, which I think is really awesome. We've kind of been talking about sort of how we're getting into the industry and sort of how you should be approaching it. I just kind of wanted to throw that question over to you, Jasmine. In terms of the sort of admin side, is there anywhere that you would recommend people to go if that's something that they want to pursue?
Well, okay, so I got super lucky. So I did the exact same as you, Ollie. I did the exact same thing. I put a tweet out because I had done numerous UK events at one point, and I was like, I want to try and do some international events. I want to work with a big tournament organizer. Can anybody point me in the right direction? I think the tweet ended up with like 30 replies of all different people tagging the same guy, Mod, in my tweet. And he's the DreamHack guy. So all these people were tagging Mod in the tweet, and then I was like, right, now I know like the guy that I've got to go to. So I wrote up a DM. I was like, I've studied games design and development at university. I've always had a huge interest in video games, like esports. I've done this, and this event. I would love to work with you at DreamHack. And then it wasn't until like he replied and was like, yeah, actually we've got an event coming up really, like I think it was like 2 weeks or something. He was like, can you fly out to Sweden? I was like, oh my god, are you joking? I was like, yes, I can fly out to Sweden. And I was at uni at the time, so I kind of had to speak to lecturers about it. And I was like, so I'm not going to be here for lectures for a few days because I'm flying to Sweden to do an event for esports. And I'm really lucky. My lecturers were like super understanding of it. But I think it might also be because I did games design and development. They were like, we'll just put it down as like work experience or something because it's still games related.
Yeah.
So yeah, my lecturers were like super supportive of it in that sense. I would say definitely check the websites for like tournament organizers and stuff that you volunteer for, or like, you know, pitch your experience and stuff to. Epic LAN, you can sign up for volunteering at Epic LAN or Insomnia. You get to work with me. I promise I'm really nice. But yeah, definitely like don't hesitate to reach out to tournament organizers as well. I contacted WESG like not too long ago, and I was like, who do I get in contact with? Like, I've got loads of experience. I'd love to work with you. And if it is the person in charge of a social media account that replies to you, they'll be able to point you in the right direction as well. Like, don't hesitate to contact through websites, through social media. Like, show how keen you are. It's really important that you show your interest and your passion and you act on it. Because, like, I don't know, there's going to be so many people out there, if they can see that you're dedicated and you're passionate about what you do, then obviously you're going to stand out.
Yeah, I think that's really solid advice. It's just sort of, I think we've kind of been iterating that throughout the whole show so far, is just being proactive and taking that extra step to, you know, to just put yourself out there. Not that you're expecting maybe even to get anything from it. It's just showing people that you know, have the drive and the passion to do so. I think that's, definitely solid advice. But unfortunately, that's all we have time for with Jasmine today. I know that you've been streaming a little bit, so would you like to shout out your stream?
Yeah, I would, well, my Twitch channel is the same as my handle down there.
Very handy.
But yeah, so on my Twitch channel, I host like community game nights like Monopoly and like Deceit, CSGO games, all sorts of stuff. And especially like during the circumstances that like we're under with like quarantine and things like that, I feel like it's really important that like the gaming community sticks together and we like encourage people, you know, you can stay at home and you're not alone. There are other people out here that want to get to know you, want to play games with you. Like, I've made new friends that are like viewers from South Africa, from America. Like, I've met so many new people and it's been fantastic. So I know they're in the Twitch chat watching this as well because they were on my Discord talking about it. So shout out to you guys.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much for taking the time to join us. Hopefully, I'll get to you in real life soon at an event when we're all back in business. That doesn't mean we're done for the show. It's time to get our fifth guest on. It's, of course, Richard Sims.
Esports scenes right now of PUBG, and also a man that I've shared the microphone with many times before. Please welcome out, ladies and gentlemen, Richard Sims.
Veracity is literally next door for them. If they hear this, they could swing in for Envy. With all due respect, they're bottom, they're 16th. What the hell do they have to lose? If they can take out some players, this for them is just a bit of a public match. They might as well go ham and have some fun.
Thank you so much for joining us, Sims. It's been a little bit of time since I last saw you. How have you been keeping?
Oh, you know, it's can't complain in times like these. Still staying in, working on a house. Bought this when did we buy it? Sometime last year, November, and it's just been a dump. So it was a full run. A lot worse than I completely undertook and anticipated altogether. But no, working on the house, casting video games, staying in.
How's Baby Sims been getting on as well? Because I think the last time I saw him was at Halo Ignite.
Yes.
He made his debut on camera, didn't he?
Yeah, and he wasn't happy about it. We were going through a bit of a bad phase of him at that point where he just didn't like to be around anybody, which, to be fair, if he texts after his dad, I don't mind that. But he wouldn't be near anybody. He wouldn't go. He'd scream at new people and stuff. But he's fine now. You can just there you go. Just, grandparents, take him, fly away. He's good though. He's massive, which is intriguing. But then again, I'm 6'3", my wife's 6'1", so he's there's not an ounce of fat on the lad, but he's just so tall for his age. He's like,
wow.
He's up past my knee height now. And he's only 16 months. So I'm kind of concerned how we're going to do with clothing.
Yeah,
but we'll find out on that one.
He's outgrowing everything straight away.
Oh mate, it's madness. It's just he's just a beast. He's huge.
Oh, that's amazing.
Well, I think it's fair to say that you're one of the esports OGs, really. And so, for those viewers that may not be aware, where did your journey kind of start in esports?
I wouldn't say OG as such because I still look at other people who are doing this way beyond and before me. Definitely, in terms of OG, I was playing back in Halo 2 days, so that was 04, and playing on LAN 05, 2005.
Oh wow!
If I'm thinking correctly here, which was the TSG and what was the other one now? TSG and XL, I think it was back in the day. I'm sure it was. I can't remember, but yeah, we had a website, did all sorts of stuff for Halo side of things. It was pretty good. It was fun doing that. Took some time off after meeting my wife and stuff, and we had a bit of a break with the gaming side. I had a bit of a break with the gaming side, kind of disconnected that and focused on work and various other bits and bats and all that kind of stuff. And then it was I got myself back on my feet and everything else. It were coming back into it with Halo 4. But yeah, it started playing and competing. What I would say many people would still say it's trash, but to a better level in 2004, 2005 is when I actually knew how to play video games. Nowadays, there's just no room whatsoever. Getting into it wise was all a bit weird. I have always prioritized family first, house first, and everything else. I think for myself, it was. Both with PUBG and Halo, I have noticed it's a lot of an older crowd. The players are a bit more mature, a bit more of an older age. And with it being Halo from being so far back, with the PUBG guys, I didn't play DayZ before. I didn't play any simulators and survival games and that lot. And a lot of these guys have they've been there, done that. So Lauren knew all of the names because she's a DayZ girl through and through. But she knew all them. So it's been quite good knowing the audience itself's a little bit more older, or at least it certainly feels that way. So being able to go off for me and do that, it was prioritize my job, prioritize the house, everything else that kind of came with it. I mean, for years I always said to my missus, this is a single man's job or a single person's job. It can be so intensive sometimes, and the time scales and stuff. But it's the best thing in the world. It really is.
Yeah.
And getting into it was just a bit of an accident, to be honest. It really was. It was all a bit of a flash in the pan, and I threw my notice and just hope for the best.
Yeah, what kind of opportunity arose that just made you go, screw it, let's just try this?
It was, so there was Halo 2 Anniversary at Gamescom, and I was very focused on it because we didn't really get to see much. It wasn't streamed at the time, Gamescom, when it first came out. It was just an internal...
What year was this?
Yeah, it was...
Ooh,
2013?
that's a good question. I think it was 14.
Okay.
I want to say.
Okay.
Because I'm sure I may have cast it in 15. I think it was 2014. It was 13 or 14 anyway when it was all announced and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was just weird. But I remember I was office based that day, thankfully, rather than being out on the road in the field and stuff doing things. And thought, right, bollocks to this. I'm not even doing any work. I'm just gonna try and stay on Twitter all day long. And I probably had about 300-400 followers at that point, and I would still get into grips with the whole Twitter and social media facade. I've never been a massive fan of it. So watching Twitter, like tweeting devs, tweeting people who were there, asking them, what's the scores? Is there any update? Who's doing this? Who's doing that? Blah 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 blah. And I think it was just polls day. It may have been streamed. Now I've said that it may have been streamed, or it may have just been the polls may have been offline. But either way, we're talking away to them forever. And I wrote this big list for them and the casters, who the players was, and it came to the point where we're helping 343 out to kind of connect with players a little bit from the European side. In the back, just out saying who's who, who's you, and just kind of connecting the dots really between EU community and 443. So just helping them out in the back a little bit. It came to the point where it was Glenn, EGL, where I first met Mike, to be honest with you, and all the rest of them, where I won't say necessarily got it probably was the big break. Gfinity were helping me out to do some other bits and bats. At the time, EGL helped me out. And then we did Battle of Europe, where it was kind of getting to the point where teams were playing for big money at that point, and trips to America and such. And I was told, look, if you want to go to, it's simple as if you want to come do something in America, take a trip, find a way. Did it. First event went pretty well. It was a damn good event, I never met any of the players. It was a bit surreal meeting all the players, from who I've been watching as a kid. Like Ogre 2, Walshy, casting with Walshy, and it's like, Christ, I was sat watching this kid in pajamas when I were, not 5-10 years ago. It were all a bit weird. And to say they were all still playing because they brought back a lot of the pros was very interesting to be casting an event of that standard for someone with very little experience at that point. Very little experience. So we kept doing it, kept going through, realized that ESL was picking up the league and such at the time, and it was kind of, do you want to be a part of this? It was like, well, yeah, okay, well then there's 6 to 9 events there for you. Come and do it. It all kind of fell at the wrong point. I'd just gone and got a new job as a manager at a different place. I thought, you know what, I'll try to be a manager at this other company. And I was only there 6 months, and I put my notice in. It's the first time I've ever put my notice in. I didn't actually want to. I felt so bad, but I used all my holidays up to cast Halo across Europe, England, everywhere else. I was throwing sick days at this point. I thought I've just got to somehow get by. I was throwing some sick days, which was bad, and I didn't enjoy doing it because it was a good job I had. It was full of people, and I still miss the guys there. So, and they give me, obviously, they've been there 6 months anyway. We did that, got through it all, and at a point I just said, I can't do this. This isn't fair anymore. I've got my life at home. I've got this Halo casting and stuff. I'm missing days. I want to focus on work. It's one or other. And I remember someone at 343 just says, well, let's try working out. Got with ESL, all came together. Threw my notice, and I just thought, I'm going to have a go at it and see what comes of it. And lo and behold, it kind of scaled from there and got a job at ESL. Recently went freelance just at the end of last year. So I've been there since the start of Halo, and now with CSA. And it's all different. It's all kind of just come as a bit of a roller coaster every single time. It's all been very intensive, but very fun. I do enjoy it. It's good fun.
Yeah,
I think that's especially like for all of the Halo boys as well. That's the interesting part, is because where I kind of met like Lethal, and then obviously I met you, and I met Mark and Dan and everyone. It's cool how close of a family all of you are, but how vastly different everyone's backgrounds into esport is. Apart from the fact that all of you came from just sitting in front of that monitor, literally playing Halo, and just for the love of the game was able to eventually make it into the position you're in. It's just how it's changed your lives.
So that's the thing with, and to kind of tack on the back of that with, do you know Miles, who does CWL now? CDL?
Yeah.
So Miles, I used to compete against. Heaven's Wrath was his name back in the day. He was a twat to kill on LAN. He was very, Miles, I'll still say this, Miles was one of the best in Europe at the time. He was up there. He wasn't quite lethal in LA1 standard, but just imagine below them, like still tier 1 player, but just below them. Very, very good. And then we did, when EGL put the Battle of Europe on, he turned up. I'm like, shit, is a caster here? Oh my God. So this is someone who I haven't competed with for years. Haven't spoke to for years, haven't seen for years. Lo and behold, they get him in for casting because like Mike knows him very, very well from the X League digs and everything else. But they did stuff beforehand. So when I kind of took a step back from it when Halo Reach was out, when Halo 3 was the Halo 2 golden game, Halo 3 golden era. I was just a pub stomper at the time. Couldn't really commit to competing with work and everything else. But then all of a sudden it's like, now you've got Miles on front of CDL with Momo and everyone else, Mark's off doing Apex and God knows what else with FIFA and everything. And it's like everyone seems to come up from Halo, and it's given us doorways into new avenues. It's really cool to see. With the Miles thing, it was quite surreal though, seeing someone who it's like, you had an afro and you were fat when I used to know you. Now he's like this big. I said, what do you do? I said, I lift stuff around, I move things. It's like, guys, I want to look like you. I'm fat now. You've got big. But no, it is weird how everyone's entwined, but everyone's a different route into it and a different doorway and kind of split off into new games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something that
is cool.
Really is fantastic about esports is seeing how people kind of diversify, what kind of roles they go into, and I'm sure we're going to speak a little bit more about that a little bit later on in the show. But right now it's time for one of my favorite segments of our weekly show. It's of course our MicroAces challenge. Now, if you guys aren't familiar, this is basically our version of a star in a reasonably priced car. You get one practice lap and then you get one real lap on MicroAces, which may sound easy, but it's really not an easy game to master if you've literally been given about a minute on it. So I believe, Ollie, we're going to start off with you. And there's a little story to go with this, I believe. I think we're actually taking your practice lap as your real lap, correct?
Correct.
What happened in your main lap, as we'll call it?
It's a long story, but to make it, small, it just went wrong. Everything went wrong. I was doing it. I think I threw the first lap quite well. I think I was maybe second. And then I got nudged by one of the enemies into like a ramp and I just couldn't move. And after struggling for about 30 seconds, ADing, hopefully I can move a little bit. Wasn't going to happen, so I just quit. I was thinking maybe I can just cut the recording and send a new one without re-snowing, but I couldn't do that.
He's too honest.
No, you could.
Too good of a kid.
Ollie, you're too nice. Yeah. Well, we're going to take a little bit of a recap of the leaderboard as it stands at the moment. Lethal absolutely smashed us last week. 28 seconds.
I mean, honestly, Sims, this is where it comes down for you to beat Halo Harry. That's the baseline in my mind.
He can't even add up, let alone drive a car. How did he beat Seddon? That's massive vehicles and stuff.
Yeah, and he had his setup going, with his car racing setup. Nuts.
Harry's
but yeah,
just a certified gamer, isn't he?
He is. Like all he plays, he's just good at. It's infuriating. Yeah. It's actually infuriating.
So, Ollie, I'm going to ask you, where do you hope that you placed on that leaderboard? Obviously, there's 5 people up there. Where are you hoping for?
I hope I'm not last. That's all I care about, in all honesty. Looking at those times, I'm kind of concerned, in all honesty. We'll see.
Well, we're going to take a look at your lap. I believe we've got the real lap coming up first. So let's get into this. Obviously,
shortcut. But then I got taken back.
Oh, I didn't realise you get taken back for that.
I know.
I'm curious because Sketchbook can't shortcut. Mouse Mat, you certainly can. I want to see if anyone's abused that this week.
Oh no.
Honestly, this is more.
You're gaining ground though. Seems like that first lap was a little bit of a test.
It's that mug. It's that coffee
again.
time.
No, I do. I agree with that.
Mug
is
annoying. Truly annoying.
Here we go. Final curve coming up. Oh no! It was close. Just turn around. There we go.
Yeah.
Damn yellow. Always taking that win. I think we've also potentially got your real clip that we're not going to be taking to show everybody exactly what you mean, because you actually got stuck underneath. It's like that ramp that we see go over. You actually got stuck underneath that, but it looks like you should be able to go forwards.
I was ADing for a solid 30 seconds. Nothing was happening. I had to give up eventually.
Yeah, not an easy game to get the hang of. I think this is it coming up, and it's a solid start from you.
So yeah, honestly, I get a bit nudged by the green. Toxic. Get back on track. I think I give him a little bit of a look as well. Oh no, I don't. I just okay.
You've got a bit wrong.
No, so green makes a mistake. I'm like, all right, I can catch him.
Yeah, no, you're on his tail.
And I'm like, boom, have that. Oh, that's my fault. I didn't realise that was my fault. I thought I got sabotaged. I just.
You are stuck.
But I don't understand how you can't go forward.
I'm trying to press D. I'm trying to press D.
It's the twitching of the wheels. So, like, please,
help me.
Struggling for my life. So yeah, I'm not confident.
Yeah, so after watching that, we're going to take the first lap as real one. After watching that, where do you think you've placed?
Bottom.
Bottom.
Very bottom. Yeah, I think so. I don't want to be, but I'm pretty confident. Who was fifth at that time? Was it Reese?
I think it was Reese.
If I can beat Reese, I'm content.
No, it's actually Jacky.
If I can beat Jacky, I'm content.
I could hear Reese smiling as he said that in my ear. But I think we're going to take a look at the leaderboard and see exactly where you placed. Actually, fourth! Look at that! You were only just over a second off me.
I take that. I considering it was the first lap as well. Who knows what wonders I could have
I know.
A big leap.
Oh my god, if you hadn't fallen off.
God.
Yeah.
Maybe, if you come back for another episode, maybe we'll give you another go. And you can practice in the meantime, yeah? Yeah?
For sure, thank you very much.
Now, Sims, over to you. Let's take a look at your lap. How did you find this race?
I've anything that's even motorsports to a bigger extent, anything sport related, just count me out of it. Like I can do a couple of FPS things, and that's about it, and probably to a smaller extent than what I used to be able to do in the past. But yeah, like motorsports, football, anything like that, I've never, not massively had a huge interest in. I just like to get stuck in and kind of like FFA style it. But no, it was okay. I will say this: I used to have a game similar, which I won't mention on it. A game very similar on the PlayStation, which we probably all have played as kids. I used to kind of smash that quite a lot. So yeah, it did bring back a few memories. I had no idea what we're doing at one point. I was like, okay, do I do this? Do I do this? Okay, we'll just roll with it. I can guarantee that Harry won't have sent you his first clip. Though I'm gonna stick. Honestly, you need to pull him on the show. I'll make him do it live.
I think he kind of admitted that he might have taken more than one practice lap, but
more than one day.
I don't know if he was joking. See, that's the thing with Harry. You can never really tell what he's been up to. It's hard to understand.
Well, yeah, we know that much.
Well, I think without further ado, it's time to see how you did on your lap. Maybe that practice on the previous thing might have helped. You're out in front though. That's a good jump.
I'm very cautious.
This is a fantastic start.
I was very cautious on the
But you're
petrol.
fast.
Oh.
Look at this.
Oh,
honestly,
this is madness. You're driving like you're trying to test your eyesight.
Look, see, you go right past that mug. No worries here.
That would have wobble.
Even bumped into anything. What is this?
He's beat Harry, sure.
100%.
Really?
Look at that
You've
control.
dethroned Halo Harry.
I thought that was...
Sure.
No, that was fast.
Really?
That was.
All I was doing was just letting go pet gas every single time.
Sims, you're too humble. You need to take some credit, and we can take a look at the scoreboard and see exactly where you've ended up. And I'm very excited to see this. Oh my god, this is about 2 seconds in it. Heartbreaking.
No.
But
And I can say that was only the second time I'd ever done it. Like literally got one. I just okay, we'll get the buttons right, and then I just went for it. You can ask Reese how quickly I sent it over. So I'll actually, if the scores are the same by the end of it, I'll go head to head with Harry live.
I like
we'll
that.
Call him out. We'll do a diss track. We'll get him in.
I would absolutely love to see that. But I think what's so impressive, obviously, we're questioning the legitimacy and lethals there. But you're a full 10 seconds above Matt, a race car driver.
And that is actually something.
That's very impressive. Yeah, we should give you a little medal for that. Well,
we'll put that on the fridge.
If I get top.
Well, fingers crossed. I think that is a very impressive time to beat. I'm definitely not going to be beating that myself. Thank you, gentlemen, both for partaking in that. I hope, maybe you learned something from that driving experience. Who knows, Ollie? Not to mess with yellow now.
Exactly. Carry on taking the tube.
Well, we're moving back onto our topic of the day, which is obviously how we're getting into esports. And I kind of wanted to continue your journey, Sims, because obviously you're mentioning that you're working for the CSA and you're also doing talent management there as well, alongside being a broadcast talent yourself. What's that kind of like juggling those two roles?
It's going good. It was kind of what it was for ESL for me. I had a few guys underneath me, working with other developers, tournament organizers, and generally anyone who comes in from marketing side of it, open events, so on and so forth. Pretty much every TO under sun I've spoken to now. Negotiations, rates, contracts, dates, times, you name it, all that kind of stuff all comes into attrition of just reading it all and looking at all the stuff. For me, it's more so, and I've always kind of stood by this, and it goes a bit more bigger on what I spoke about earlier on. With me having a house, a wife, a child, I'll always want that stability. And I don't know if I'd ever, especially now, like getting a bit older, and it probably ain't older to compare to some other people, but I'm in my 30s now. I don't know if a full freelance lifestyle for me would be, I'd be comfortable doing it. I spent 12 years as an engineer, full-time job, security, stability. If you're sick, you've got your sick days, you've got your pension at the end of it, your taxes are done, goes for all your PAYE and everything else. It's all safety net, everything's kind of done for you. You go to work, you do what you're told, you get your money, go home, fine. And that's kind of how it always was me for 10 years or 12 years, just doing that, having a line of management to speak to. And it was definitely hard becoming a caster, like staying at home, thinking, because I worked from home straight away. So the first day that I'll always remember at ESL, well, the first day at home, should I say, I was kind of sat there like, is this really what, is this what it's like now? I'm being paid and I'm sitting at home, kind of just waiting for the next thing to come in. Don't get me wrong, I would finding other things to do, working on other projects, working with other people. I certainly want just sitting around doing nothing. But it was definitely always been a hard factor for me. I don't know if I could just sit at home, twiddle thumbs and wait for the next event to come in, which I wouldn't do anyway. I know I'd be proactive at messaging people. I mean, hell, if I had to go out and get a part-time job, I certainly would do. But it was never something that I'd ever fully feel comfortable with, just sitting around doing nothing and just looking for the next gig, so to speak. I do need a level of stability, just for my own mental state, to be honest with you, knowing that, okay, there's income coming in. But no, it's the two balance really well. I like to think that I can give a good view to the guys and support them from that angle, kind of knowing it from myself and from my past experiences. And I was a team leader. Like, I know it was only for 6 months, but I was a senior engineer, a previous job, and then became a team leader when I went to the next one. So I got a lot of experience from those few years of knowing how to handle people and talk to them from a customer level up to a underneath level, someone who's working below you, so to speak. And and I think support's really good, supporting people that are below you, helping other casters out. I enjoy that. And if I can go to a caster and say, okay, well, we've got this thing, let's get you on this, or where do you want to be? Let's try and work that there. It's a good feeling to be able to try and help somebody out. And I do get quite a lot of enjoyment out of doing that. I still love doing my own games. I mean, hell, it's also a point of not being able to take on too much. Like, don't get me wrong, everyone's been looking at Valorant at the moment. There was probably a few opportunities that I could have gone in and cast it for certain events, but I just didn't at the time really have not any interest. Like, oh yeah, this is cool, it's good, it's an FPS, it's a bit it's a bit CSA and everything else that goes within it, and we all know it's going to be a very big thing and a bit of a caster royale, so to speak, when all the events do come up. But I don't know if I know that I don't have that time to commit to something like that. I know my games. I like to make sure that if I'm working on something, PUBG, Halo, the only other game that I'd really ever work on, and I know Jacky will be a fan of this, is Warcraft. I don't do the PvP side of it, but I'd love just to be able to be on. I don't even do like hardcore dungeon raiding. I did 3 years of that, heroic raiding and progression raiding. I just don't even have time for that anymore. But I'd love to one day just even be on a show, hosting, co-hosting, whatever, just doing something of that, because I play the game casually, and it's only one of really 3 games I've ever took.
I raced to world first with you on the panel just so we could just chat absolute bollocks.
Well, that's the thing. I'd have no idea what's really going on. I'd have some idea what's going on, but like from a hardcore level, parkour perspective of breaking things down, like the fights and stuff, I'd learn it, because you've got to do it. If you're working on a product, you have to take it seriously. You have to learn the fights, learn the rotations, learn the the whole system. Don't stand fire, blah blah blah. You name it. Christ, I can think back to pre-podding and countdown and everything else. That's still all all the buffs and everything that goes with it. Like, it used to be quite an intensive thing. I used to do that for 4 or 5 days a week at some point during Firelands. That was hardcore. I think I believe I still got a Magmore Server 6 kill heroic from BWD, and then at one point I do have a picture somewhere on one of my like little old school USB drives. I was the highest geared paladin at one point, rated in. I got the four bosses that we killed. I got all 4 pieces. So I was the highest gear scored rated in on the entire European server at one point. I'm like, yeah, okay. Screenshot that. That's my claim to fame for about an hour before everyone else gets it.
The accolade that should just be in your Twitter bio.
Yeah. it was definitely good fun. No, it's good. I enjoy it. I really do enjoy it. I like to think I can try and help other people out, and that's the whole point of it. Not only just of been doing it a job, but it's supporting people, it's helping people, it's making sure that they're comfortable. And if I try and find new avenues or explore new things within gaming and hosting roles, whether it's analytical side of it, whether it's just getting into new games, I enjoy doing that.
It sounds really cool. Sorry, you go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, no, it reminded me of something that obviously my first ever ESL HQ event was because of you, Sims, where you literally reached out to me and pushed me for, I think it was some of the stuff they were doing on the qualifiers for Katowice, right? And that was literally out of the blue. You were just like, hey, mate, would you like to do this? Set it all up for me, put me through with it. And literally that kickstarted so much of where otherwise I never would have had the opportunity of doing any of that stuff. So that was a big one from you that I'll always respect massively. And I remember the one thing you said to me where I was just like, cheers so much, like, I can never repay you for this, and you were just like, well, pass it on to the next person.
That's what Golden Boy told me years ago, when we did the first time I ever got to work with him, in fact. And like, I said, thank you for helping us out and whatnot. Would you have any kind of like recommendations or feedback? So he goes, always just make sure that you pass it back to the next person. If someone does you a favor, help someone else out. If you can find someone, help them into the industry. If you can find them a gig, like I'm not one. It don't infuriate me or anything, but like if a gig comes in and I can't do it, I always look to try and pass it on to somebody. There's no reason why. I think we're all in the same boat. We're all doing the same thing. We're all still trying to make a living, regardless of what it is. It shouldn't be gatekeeping as such.
No.
And if you can pass that on to someone else and they can do a good job, then fair play. But like you guys have been smashing at the time, all the UK scene and stuff. There was a job that needed to be done. There was no other perfect opportunity to pass it on or even scale it up as such to something of a bigger level. And it's when you can do that, I think it's pretty damn cool.
It's awesome. I think I kind of echoing your sentiment of it's not you're not each other's competition in the talent scene. It's actually just about making a really good product and making esports a sort of cool place for everybody and making it viable. That's kind of how I see it. Like I've had a number of people that said, I can't do this job. Do you want to do it? Or I've been in that same situation. And it's like actually it's really just cool to see the product succeeding and esports becoming an even bigger thing over time.
Agreed. I'm sure that if you do, there is that level of if you are going to recommend somebody knowing that they can do it, because there is that point of, okay, if I give someone who's never done this before or never done something at his level and is going to, with all due respect, drop the ball, or if just isn't used to that level of significance on them, then you don't want it coming back on you. So I think you have to be cautious about it and certainly make sure that when you're doing this, it's you've thought through what the product is rather than it's just a job. Here you go, take that. That they're actually the right fit for it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think what's really interesting, actually, there's our two guests that we have on at the moment. Obviously, we've got Sims, who, we're talking about your sort of veteran of experience in the esports scene. And obviously, Ollie, you've been entering it a little bit more recently. What are you kind of focusing on in the future? Is there a specific area? I know we were talking about you've done some filming, you've done obviously replays and like highlight packages. Is there a sort of a certain area within esports that you're really, really pushing to going towards?
I like being a replay operative, but I also like the editing. I think like editing is probably the most experienced I am now, because I've done quite a few editing different things. But I'm down to do anything, and I think that's like kind of the whole point with esports. Like you've got to be down to do a lot that one title suggests, or at least that's what I've kind of discovered. So yeah, I'm down to do anything. Ultimately, the goal now is full-time employment, because I am petrified of freelancing, because it is scary, and you don't know if you don't know if like the next word that comes out of your mouth is going to be hated so much by someone that you'll never work for them again. And this is hypothetical, and it probably will never happen, but you can't help but get concerned about that, in my opinion. So yeah, I like the goal now is ultimately full-time employment.
Yeah, no, I totally respect that. I think I sort of echoing a little bit of my story as well. Obviously, when I first got into it, it was still working for Face It Now, but it wasn't just doing, the stage hosting stuff. It was actually creating content and helping Mike do a lot of research into some of these projects. So it was actually for the major. He basically, he saw that I was really interested in CS, and I've been watching CS for, God, I don't even know how many years. He was like, you know what? Can you just write down all this information about all these players, key storylines, rosters, their roles, just everything you have. And then it was, okay, we're going to make some videos on it now. And it was this really cool gradual process of getting to learn, how things work. And then eventually I actually got to go on a shoot to make one of the major player profiles. We actually did it for Stewie, I believe. Yeah, because he was with MIBR at the time. And it was really, really cool. And that's something that I really respect about, a lot of companies in esports as well, is that they're willing to just not necessarily put you in a box of like, okay, cool, you're host, you just do this. Actually, it's been awesome. And that's what's given me sort of the drive to, take that full-time employment with Face alongside hosting stuff. Is that there's just so much to learn, and you can have so much impact on a show, right? If you have an idea, I'm sure you can echo this, Ollie. If you have an idea, just tell somebody about it, and 9 times out of 10, if it's a good idea, they'll implement it somehow into a show. And I think that is such a cool thing about, my job personally, I'm sure with yours as well, actually seeing an idea that you have come to fruition when you just never thought that would happen, right?
It's good pay. It's really good pay. Like the lowest APA rate for a runner is £193 a day. And that's the lowest of the low. And then you look at kind of like assistant directors, they're talking thousands of pounds each day. And, when I was doing running for like television, you get good money, but you're also just making tea and, giving it to old men who are quite frankly not happy with their lives anymore and just want to retire as soon as possible. So being able to esports, it's still developing, and I think you take that maybe minor pay cut to do so much more and to actually be involved and to actually gain experience. I remember talking to multiple runners in television, and they were saying that the kind of the generic path is 7 years running, and then 9 years to get to second assistant director, first assistant director. I think I remember talking to DOP on one of the shoots for a co-op, and he was saying, it takes 16 years to get to this position. I was like, I don't want to waste 16 years. I did in the first Global Summit job I had, I was filming content for them. So that it shouldn't take 16 years to get to that point. And I think that's why I love esports so much. It's just an escalation of that, and I love it.
Yeah, I think there's so much of breadth, isn't there, just to be learning. Sorry, Jackie, you go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, I was recollecting one of the funny TV moments that I remember, where Michael Stubbsy, when he was helping the BBC when they were doing some of the TV stuff for Gfinity with the Elite Series, right, for CS. Apparently, the entire control room was full of these old men that are used to editing clips of tennis and stuff and doing vision mixing. And this was the episode that Snods, who was for some reason on air, just went devil walk there, looking sad, defecated as well, and then again in the show said defecated at another point, and I was just like, am I the one that's just crazy, or is he just saying they shit themselves? And this entire boardroom of old men apparently just erupted into laughter, were just losing their minds, because obviously they were just like, why is this guy just dropped that on the BBC? They clipped it and then just tweeted it on the BBC free account and just added Snods.
Oh my god,
it was incredible.
That's amazing. Was that when it was in the View Cinemas?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I remember
it
that.
Smelled like popcorn. It was a lovely place.
So, weird story. They ran a competition, Gfinity, for you to win tickets to go to that. And I think they had 5 pairs of tickets. And all you had to do was tweet them. I think it was it was written, and you had to describe what your favorite map was in CS. And at that point, I'm sure many of you were aware, when you queued matchmaking, you'd only get Dust 2. So of course, I would just write about Dust 2. And actually, there was, I think, 6, because it was a public entry. There was only actually 6 entrants. So I was like, you know what? I had a pretty good chance of getting these tickets. And I did get the tickets in the end. But that was awesome. Actually seeing Counter-Strike be properly played in a cinema. That was so cool. Remember the booths on the stage? That was awesome.
It was a good time. Oh.
I love that event. Awesome stuff. Moving back over to you, Sims, you kind of mentioned, in terms of your role as sort of talent management, because you have that experience as a talent, do you think that kind of gives you a unique insight in terms of your job, sort of managing people, and obviously you're still doing on-air talent stuff as well. Do you think that kind of gives you a unique insight that allows you to potentially, do your job better?
Mm.
I think we are just having a little bit of issue with getting Sims back on the call,
Oh,
but I
there he
think
is.
there he is. He's back.
It did freeze up, and I was wondering, should I hit refresh?
I could hear you, but unfortunately the stream couldn't.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe just
We'll
get
run
back
it
on your
back,
point.
like
Yeah,
Run,
okay.
yeah, run it back.
So
Just
the
rewind.
long story short is yes, I do think from my perspective I do able to offer them, been in this position doing talent work myself, been able to offer them a bit more of an insight. It's mainly looking for things that I don't agree with, certain things within contracts, certain things within pay, certain things within work days. We've all been there, we've all done that. It's the quick, it's the 2-hour rehearsal that takes 8 hours later. It's like, well, this is definitely a day's worth of pay. We've all done it, we've all been there, if anyone's a caster. So it's just little things like that, and it's making sure that I can offer some sort of insight to answer any of the questions. What would you do in this case, or this is what I think is wrong or right with this contract. Do I think this is good? Do I think this is bad? Do I think it's a good opportunity for you? And things like that. Probably just offering from my own personal perspective, but then from a larger management perspective, it's about looking after people and making sure that their welfare's all above board, and been someone that they can go to if they're pissed off, if they want to moan, if they want to whinge, or if they're looking for a new outlet. What do we do, and how do we make this happen? If I want to get into this game, what do you think is the best way of doing it? Do I need a partnership? I need a duo. Blah 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 blah. There's a million and one questions, and it's just looking and assessing them all from both a professional perspective, a company level, but also from my own insights of what I've had to deal with over the last few years. Which, to be fair, has been brilliant. Like I do always, it feels like an unreal job, because it's kind of the dream job, getting to do what I do. I do love it. It is damn good, and I am very grateful for it.
Yeah, there are days definitely where I'm like, pinch me. Like, this is a complete dream. You sort of work some events and you're like, how is this a real thing that I'm actually being paid to do? Like, it is absolutely nuts.
There's often a few times where you just think, like any job, you get annoyed at and things, you have players now and again in every single job, but there's a few where I've just been sat there, kind of annoyed at myself, thought, I'm paid to talk about video games, just shut up and get on with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just shut up. And it does pull my head out the backside sometimes.
You also have those events as well where it's the complete opposite end, where you have so much fun and it's just so enjoyable to do what you're doing that you're like, wow, why am I here? How is this been allowed to happen? It's incredible.
Flying across the world to talk about a video game, and you're getting paid to do it. It's like, don't get me wrong, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's there's definitely a lot of commitment. Like, even from me and my wife have had difficulties, and in terms of like me being away all the time, it's a strain on the relationship, definitely.
Yeah.
Last year doing PEL, like my son was born, I spent God knows how many times away from home, so I missed a lot of that, growing up. Dieting, Christ, the health side of it is a nightmare, and like hell, I got myself back in the gym and it was going well, and then COVID hit, everything's closed that down. It's like it's something always it's kind of in the way, if you know what I mean, like trying to get things going. A gig comes up, so oh yeah, things are going well, okay, you're going away for a week, well, back to pizzas, kebabs, and everything else that's kind of offered to you there. There's definitely a lot of sacrifice that need to be made. I will say that, and like it's not a 9 to 5. If anyone even dare thinks of it as a 9 to 5, it's not.
It's a lifestyle, right? Like
100%. I don't even know what a weekend is. Like most of our work falls on a weekend. That's when we do his events. It's like it's not Monday to Friday, or it's just whenever the job's
days
there.
of the week just stop having meaning.
Yeah,
you just don't
100%.
remember.
Yeah,
you just carry on.
Totally.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well. We were kind of speaking about it in our last episode. Kind of, the mentality and sort of mental health aspect of actually being in esports. We were talking about obviously Glenn, who's taken a step down famously from Astralis just because he needed to take some time because he was worried he was going to be suffering from burnout. And you look at him, he is literally the best game leader in the world in the best team. One of the best teams in the world at least now. And it's kind of interesting. I think it's really cool how it's been coming up as a sort of a topic and an issue that people are actually kind of taking a bit more awareness of now and actually thinking, yeah, it's not super healthy to be traveling, 50 out of 52 weeks of the year, right?
No, yeah, it certainly is better.
You have to look at that, and I think it does have a knock-on effect. I mean, for me, one of the things I struggle with, like, especially with hotels, sleeping habits are appalling. Like any time zone crossings, even if it's not too far, like I struggle with hotels really bad. If I'm not in my own bed, that getting some sleep and the effect of it is just awful. It's terrible. It really makes me feel crap at times. Been away from my son last year was definitely hard. I will say that certain times. I mean, we worked together. I got the missus an iPad so we could have it on big screen, and we could talk a lot more on that format. But still, like knowing she was at home, if anything happened, I wasn't there to help out. If God forbid, anything happens at all, like it's not. Especially working in America, like with the World Championship for PUBG was in America, and Halo's a very NA based game. It's not a simple fact. It's all right. I can just bomb it down to the airport and get home, like from Germany or something. So yeah, I mean. We did PUBG World Championship last year towards the end of it. I was 3 weeks in America. I have honestly, getting home and seeing my son, I have not cried as much in my entire life. I cried and cried for ages, and it's just like 3 weeks away from my family. And, and he wasn't even the same boy that I kind of left. Came back, and it's like he's doing things. He's standing up on, sitting up now, and he's wearing bigger clothes. And it's like, I've missed all this. But you make your sacrifices, and you have to do what my wife supports me because she knows I love this, and this is what I love to do, and this is why I've got my office in the house, and she knows that it pays his bills, it keeps the roof over his head and such. But more importantly, she supports me doing it.
That's awesome.
That's what's God. So we do have a definitely a good relationship when it comes to that. That she knows what I do, and we make it work. It's not easy, not at all. There's been many arguments, there's been many problems with it, but we make it work, and yeah, I enjoy it. It's still, I feel blessed to be able to do this. I genuinely do.
Yeah, and you kind of see your sort of two staple games, Halo and PUBG as well, which is obviously a newer title than Halo. What was your kind of decision to sort of get into PUBG? How did it kind of happen?
So I've always kind of told myself that I will only work on something that I genuinely feel good about, and I actually play and enjoy. Like I did the Quake Pro, is it World Championship? I think it was. With Dan, actually. Dan and Lethal was on the desk at ESL.
Yeah. Back
but
at
I was,
ages ago.
dude, I was so apprehensive about doing that because I was like, I don't play it. I don't really know much about it. I don't know the Quake scene at all. I was so scared about doing it. Rob Black just basically gave me a kick up the ass and says, you know how to host a show. Just do your research like you would everything else and do it. And I loved every minute of it. It was fantastic. And that's why I kind of started the enjoyment of a bit more of the hosting side of it. But when it comes to casting, I won't cast anything that I don't play and that I don't enjoy. It's taken me a long time to really find that other game where it's like, this is what I enjoy and what I actually feel comfortable at. Like I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but I can handle myself in the game. I'm more than comfortable on the battlefield. But the only thing that I've ever been able to work it with, I have a bit of an addictive personality. Like if I ever go on holiday, I'll buy a new Pokemon game. Just because being ginger, I do not sunbathe, and the missus is like I will not sit in sun at all. I'll have a dip in pool and sit and just chill all day long. But like it's the same vibe I get from Warcraft. I love playing WoW, getting my characters all geared up, working your way through the levels. I mean, I don't know how many 120s I've got now, but just leveling him up, doing storylines, getting him to be the best. With PUBG, I get that feeling like landing and getting to the end game where you just fully tanked up with everything. But I also have the FPS background and aspect from Halo, and it's nowhere near as run and gun as Halo. Like Halo's a respawn game, so it's very kill death. With this one, I'm very much a passive player. I'll sit there with a sniper and happily try and ping someone at 700-800 meters away. I really enjoy gearing up and getting into that late game passively and just working as a team and as a unit. But yeah, the chance to cast that came up, and I kind of jumped with all hands at it because I really got addicted to it, and I hadn't got that feeling since really the Halo days of finding another game. It was the first game since then. I was like,
was moved to your channel.
I want to do. I definitely want to do this, and I want to do everything I can. So I was just pinging everybody, like everybody. There was definitely an aspect of luck with a lot of it being at ESL and me being at ESL. Not luck, but the kind of stars aligned, so to speak.
Yeah.
Is that I had the guys within ESL who I could contact and speak to, and with Bluehole at the time doing a lot of work with ESL. I kind of says, well, this is where I want to be, and told them, and they give me an opportunity, especially casting Gamescom, even though it was a bit of a interesting show, to say the least. It was, to be able to do that, and when you had like 400,000-500,000 people watching at one point across all the thing, it's like, oh, okay, this is big, and that's when you got I think over the week, I hit 1 million peak players on Steam. But yeah, it was it was before that though. Playing it, I just thought, this is for me. I really want to do this.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. Ollie, I kind of just want to speak to you a little bit more about, obviously you're, quite new in the scene in the grand scheme of things. If somebody is in your position, what's sort of the one piece of advice that you'd give them to sort of hopefully follow along the same path as you have, and achieve the things that you have in such a short period of time?
Get yourself on Twitter and start tweeting people. I don't really know, to be honest. I think just be like a decent person, I guess. I'm not very confrontational. I've never personally had a fight. The closest I've been to a fight was holding my friend's bag of chips as we fought someone in the leisure centre. And I stay away from that danger. So yeah, I just don't be too confrontational. Kind of know where you are, and just don't say no. Like I think anyone's ever qualified for a job, or it's very rare that someone's qualified for the job they think they're doing. I've never kind of entered a job thinking I'm qualified for it ever. And I've worked in McDonald's. I didn't think I was qualified for that one. Like it's purely just I don't know, work, like to say you're going to do it and just do it, and then do it to your best of your ability, and apologize if you do it wrong. Like I've made mistakes, and I'm the first one to admit it, and I apologize to multiple people when I make mistakes, because if you need to. If it's your mistake, you've got to do it, and I don't know. It's just be nice.
Ollie, you are literally one of the nicest and hardworking people that I've ever had the good fortune to work with. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. It's been fantastic to speak to you. Unfortunately, we do have to say goodbye, but before you go, is there anything that's been announced that you're working on that you maybe want to push out?
I'm working on Rainbow Six on the weekend, doing the replays for the European. I forget what it's called now. Like European tournament.
Open Clash. Yeah.
Come and join. It's good. Going to be good fun. Make sure to compliment on the replays on the Twitch chat. I very much appreciate it. And then Quake as well. I'll be start doing Quake in not this Sunday because I'll be doing Rainbow Six, but the following week I'll be back on the Quake broadcast. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Apart from that, that's all I got.
Awesome stuff. Well, you know what? It's a good line of work to have up. Thank you again so much for taking the time to join us. But that means it's time to get our sixth and final guest on. Is of course ZSX.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Face It Profiles. This I'm introducing. Sorry guys, we don't need him, you got me. I'm ZSX, I will be your Face It profile for today, also known as Dan Sanders. I would also like to introduce you to Thunder and Lightning. We are the Storm.
Fantastic to meet you, Dan. Thanks so much for taking time to join us. That intro was incredible. You there with GDK. What was that? That is amazing. It's actually the first time I've had the pleasure of meeting you. So again, thank you for taking the time to join. You're obviously the head of esports and game marketing at Red Bull. What kind of does that job entail for you?
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've had the pleasure of working on a Red Bull Flick recently, which again, as you said, it's been such an awesome event, and it's really cool that Red Bull actually come with these ideas. Now, hey, we want to make this happen. How do we do it? And they're always such unique ideas as well. Like I absolutely love the maps that we've got. Obviously, for those of you that aren't familiar, it's a 2v2 CS:GO competition, but it's not to do with kills or planting a bomb. It's actually to do with capturing a point. So there's been some really cool maps created of that. I know you said you just mentioned that you've watched a little bit of it. What have you been thinking of that?
We actually hosted an online one for the UK just to try it out. It's like you said, it's want to do things in a different way. That's what Red Bull's all about, and it's fun in gaming because you get to create something from scratch, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We want to add value. I really like the Flick concept, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's always fun to see how we can mess with things and see how the community responds.
Yeah, for those of maybe the viewers that aren't too familiar with your background, how did you initially get started in esports, and what were you doing?
I guess like most people started kind of almost the time of Sims, really. I was back in early Quake, going to Insomnias in like 03, 04, thinking I was all that, as a little kid back then. I guess my first real steps into esports was 2006. I went to DreamHack and represented Dignitas for Quake. Quake's always been the one game I've stuck with my whole time. And then I just jumped in and out, really. I was never someone that pushed the heights of it. I didn't commit to it. I didn't believe myself, but I was always fortunate enough to qualify and go to the events at the time, DreamHacks, the old ESLs, the IEMs, and even the old QuakeCon. So it was quite early doors, sleeping on floors and sleeping very rough just to get to events with very little money that we had. But it was about for the love of the game. And then from there, I jumped into a bit of casting. So I think my first ever cast was 2007 or 2008 back at DreamHack, and that was the time before live productions existed. So it was just a group of guys who were wrangling in any of the pro players that got knocked out in the first round, and obviously that was me. So I got stuck casting the whole event because there was nothing else to do while I was just standing around DreamHack for a weekend. And then from there, I just enjoyed that side. It was less pressure, and I could do it better than I could play. And now I'm stuck trying to carry people like Jacky through Quake and teach them how it's actually done.
We carry each other, balancing act.
I mean, we don't,
your
but it's all
bigger,
right.
But
you bring the looks, I'll bring the analysis.
Well, that is the perfect segue, Jacky. Thank you for obviously bringing out the big arms. Dan, you're also a former rugby player, is that correct? How on earth did you find the time to do that as well?
Great thing about sport is that you get injured a lot, and particularly rugby. You're kind of just sitting around with not very much to do. I played rugby since I was a kid, and it was always the one thing I was dreaming of doing. And I got fortunate that I got to professional level. I played for London Wasps, London Irish, Leeds, but I did get injured a lot. Jack can probably tell you that I'm normally hobbling around even today. And,
he's got a lot of problems.
Yeah, I do. I'm doing that. And so, fortunately for sport, you get plenty of time outside of sport to play games, and you can see all the sportsmen now with lockdown playing all the time. And Quake was the one thing that I kept doing during that time. And then when I finally did get injured and packed it all in, Quake was there, and esports was still there for me to fall back on and just continue doing what I still loved. And the competition side of things was always great for me as well. I find that there's a lot of crossover between the two, and in some ways esports is hard in the sport, and obviously in other ways sports hard in the sports. So yeah, it was a journey.
Yeah, that must be a really interesting sort of comparison point to have. But on the topic of fitness, you've actually created some quarantine fitness videos for us, haven't you? I've actually had the pleasure of looking at these before, but we're going to play these. These are out, so let's take a look.
Right, this is Vitamin D's workout, so let's get rid of our equipment, clear our space up. Don't need that. Heavy weights, we'll need them in a bit. Bands, super useful. Got our workout mat here. Good old Hammock. Oh, let's move these weights. Oh, yes. Another one, just get fucked. Yeah. Oh, and then the good stuff. Gen 1 wireless. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that's thinner. Oof. And then something a bit lighter. Let's get that in. Yeah, that's going to be quality.
It's the build-up to that one. It's the slow progression of all of these weights slowly getting heavier. And then that wireless mount.
The mice obviously being the hardest ones there. You know what? That's really good ideas for gamers, though. Mid-round, maybe when you died on Counter-Strike, if you've got a wireless mouse, do some reps, right?
So I wonder why my socials aren't bigger watching that content, you know.
I need a TikTok, mate. That stuff would blow up.
Oh, God,
You know what? That isn't the only clip we've got, though, haven't we? We've got some more. We're going to take a look at this one. What are we going to be doing here? I'm kind of scared you're going to jump on this. Oh.
No,
we're jumping
way
over
too
it.
powerful for that. Look at those quads.
Oh, man. Gosh.
Dedication.
That's actually my proper PC. So I was actually a little bit afraid for them in that.
I was going to ask.
You took it out.
Exactly. I wouldn't be doing. I'm on iPad now, so it wouldn't make a difference to this show. But
amazing. Let's take a look at that. I believe we've got one more clip lined up. What is
I blame
this
Jacky
going
for
to
this.
be?
This is pure forearm. So anyone that has to do a bit of aiming, I thought, you know, whack out the forearm weight. You can see the veins coming through.
Oh yeah.
With the mouse mat underneath. I like it.
Well, you got to get the support.
Yeah, the mouse pads, very sportive.
We're going to have a word of Reese after this, making me sit here feel inferior. You know, it's like, God damn.
You know what? But don't you feel inspired, Sims?
I had to share a desk with this guy with his guns hanging out, with his tightest shirt you've ever seen. I'm just sat here like I'm covering my second and third shirt.
Mate. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I were wearing it, but for the wrong reasons as well.
I should have been super resourceful though. Seeing you use that mouse pad as, you know, for your arms, I've been struggling to try and find, you know, like a yoga mat to do at-home exercises from, because everybody's bought them up, and bloody Sports Direct have increased the price to like 50 quid for a yoga mat. I should end up on my mouse pads.
Get one of those like massive. I've got one over here. I've got mouse pads everywhere. I've got a super long one. It's like 2 meters long.
I definitely need that in my life. What we were kind of talking about it a little bit before. What's that kind of like? You said you could kind of draw some comparisons from the sort of sports side and the esports side. What kind of comparisons are you drawing?
I think fitness is even one of them. I credit at least some of my limited success to the fitness side of things in terms of increasing concentration, even using weights and things like that. I believe helps with the see mouse control and crossovers there, but I guess the training and structure of it can help you understand how to be dedicated and commit to that type of regime that you need. Also, the analytical side of the game as well. Obviously, playing Quake, I was in a duel, so it was a one-on-one scenario, and just having the capacity to take time to dedicate to review, analyze your game, and understand what areas you need to improve on, take critique well. There's plenty of small details that you don't realize that you get from the sporting side of things. But also, as I mentioned, there are some elements of esports I found more challenging, and the biggest one for me was the mental side of esports, where in a one-on-one situation in Quake, it's the focus and pressure is solely on your shoulders, whereas from a background in rugby, you have a team around you to support you, and if you're not playing well, there's other people that take up the burden, and that just you don't have that at least in a one-on-one situation in Quake, and so that's what I found most challenging. I struggled with, if I'm honest. So I found in that aspect, sport was a little bit easier.
It's also quite interesting in the sense of something that I think everyone's kind of mirrored throughout the whole show today, out of all the guests that come on, is the sense of learning those skills from different backgrounds outside of esports and then using them to develop yourself, obviously, inside of esports is such a huge aspect to it. And I think it's the same with you, Sims, in the sense where you got a lot of confidence, but it doesn't blur that line of confidence into arrogance. You know, where it's just you're quite confident what you say, you're confident the way you approach ideas and projects. Obviously, the different with Dan, sort of, you know, being able to run things on basically a global scale, and you, Sims, obviously being able to micromanage so many people help their mech. It's interesting that you've both got sort of those skills from completely different backgrounds that have been able to translate hugely into esport and furthering develop talent and sort of projects as well that otherwise you might not be as good at.
I think that's fair. And I think it also, I suppose you kind of excel at what you're good at, right? And if you enjoy something, you will put as much focus and time and effort and attention to it. If there are things that you can draw on from past and previous experiences, I mean, I'll always say talking to people. Going in, when I had the more senior role of fixing, so I used to fix printers and copies. That's what I did for a living for 12 years. And one of the points is that my boss would always tell me, it gets to a point where it escalates, where the machine had been broke like 4 times in a week and customers throwing a fit. They're going to, threatening to lob it out a window and leave it outside for you and pick up, and they're carrying on. So you know what you're going into. I'd kind of set myself a challenge that I would go into that customers, and if I could get them to make me a coffee like halfway through the machine and have a conversation with me, then it's done its job. If I can go get a coffee, so be it. But if I could have a nice conversation with them, a civilized conversation, a machine were working, then I'd be happy. And I think that level of confidence of talking to people is definitely something that I've transitioned, and also something that I actually missed. That's one thing, going and seeing new people, new faces, until you start traveling the world around doing all different bits and bats. But from talking to people every single day, it was something that I actually missed at the start, but also do enjoy doing. So things like this, coming on, speaking to people, seeing from different backgrounds and such, it's always good fun.
Yeah, I mean, Sims, you mentioned seeing a challenge there, and you know what? On this show, we love a challenge. I'm gonna set you two both a little surprise challenge. Sims, we're going to start with you. You're actually going to be casting each other's games. We did it last week with Medic and Toby1. We swapped over titles. So Toby1 had to cast some League of Legends. Obviously, Medic had to cast some Dota 2. So Sims, we're going to bring up, actually it's going to be 2 Quake clips, because Quake is obviously a little bit faster paced than PUBG. We're going to bring up 2 clips for you, and it's your challenge to cast over them. So we're going to start off. No time to think. Right now, let's go.
No idea what map we're on, but there's a fair amount of grass above. Picking up the invisible gun. It looks like an invisible gun at least. Big shiny laser beams, lots of lightning. I think it's a rail gun or a lightning gun. Maybe a nail gun, who cares? He got us a frag. 100 base. That's a loud amount of base if it is a base. Dual guns in the middle of the screen illuminated. Not a frigging clue what this means. Maybe it's a Q. Still keeps going with that base. There's a song about that as well.
It seems like you learned nothing from casting with me, man. That's
to be fair, that's how it goes working with ZSX.
Yeah.
I think
what was it? Is it a chain gun or a lightning gun?
It was a rail gun that he opened up.
Close enough. Got every single one but
learning.
See, we're a team effort here.
I think we might have one more clip on the line as well. So we get this one up and see how you fare.
I'm still trying to remember the map from this one. I don't know if that was the green laser gun. Yeah, either way. He looks like invisible now. Is that a camouflage or something? I don't know. There seems to be 42 seconds left in the game, apparently, but we'll keep rolling with it. More shots are coming his way. Yeah, looks like Kilson. I recognize the name Kilson, and also Razy as well. I do remember these ones. Was that the actual show?
Was that was the one you casted? That sounded like you from 2 years ago.
Now I actually remember it.
Yeah.
Out of 10, Dan, how are you rating this casting?
I'll take him back. I'll mentor him.
Thanks,
He's got
Dan.
potential.
Appreciate it.
Well, it's your turn. You're going to be casting some PUBG, I believe. So we're going to put a clip.
Right.
Let's see how you do.
Cool. All right, we're into the slowest game in the world. I just see a bunch of people waddling around up on the hill. Yeah, if I've learned anything from the History Channel, they've got the high ground. They're going to win. So this guy's going to have to crawl for his life. But there's some sort of orange grenade going out. I don't know. Are they dead? Shit. He killed them. That was actually sick. Anyway, he's still alive. He's got the high ground. So now he should be winning 10 kills. Wow, that's pretty good. I've never killed anyone in PUBG. I play a real game. And he's got some people in this. Can he actually see through walls? Can you actually see that? No, is he checking that grenade the whole way? This time he does miss. That is unfortunate. I don't know if he's got any grenades left because I can't even see the UI. I don't know how many people are left, but there's 30 minutes gone. That's quite a long game. I don't know how people concentrate for that long. 2 teams alive. Are they actually going to shoot, or are they just chucking grenades at each other? This is bizarre, but once again, he does miss. That's so unfortunate from I Am Legend over there. Circle's closing in. I think he'll take a little bit of damage if it does hit him. Don't know if it will. He should be aware that there's a big giant blob chasing
if you game. Some great camping going on as he hides behind a rock. There is a car in the way, and apparently he's killed him. That was good.
Fantastic. Sims?
What
do you make of that?
Yeah, it was good. Enjoyed it. It was. I like the the quick nod to the camping and the chucking a grenade and chucking a grenade and chucking a grenade and another nade and another nade from a patch gone past. Yeah, we'd take down and over here.
I'm not gonna lie, that play was just legit. I didn't really know. I thought it was a smoke grenade, but yeah.
From the FACEIT Global Summit, and it's still highly regarded as one of the best players in the world, because that team they killed was just out of everything. He shouldn't have done it, and it was good. It was a very damn good play, because he wins the whole thing. Like, he shouldn't have done it. I think there are 3 teams up at the end, the 4 and then 2 solos. He just shouldn't have won it.
Should they all be standing together?
Yes and no. Yes, because they had the height advantage of that.
So I was right with that bit.
Yeah, they could play the bevel, but the thing is, no one checked it. Like, they were stupid enough to they should have checked it 110% behind them, which you will find a lot of players do that now if you're going to play that scenario. But yeah, it was nuts. It was crackers to watch unfold.
It was awesome as well, because we had an audience for that portion of the Global Summit, and obviously 4am are a massive team in Asia, and there was actually a lot of Asian transfer students that came over. They were at one of the universities in London, and I've never heard a crowd erupt like that. It was absolutely bonkers. I think you were actually in that game, weren't you, Sim?
That particular one, no, it was Matchroom and Paper, but it has with some of the Chinese teams, especially like the Chinese fan base. I mean, the game's still in China. We call it PUBG is the game. Like, in China, it is just insanely big. It's on new levels, and whenever you go to these events, no matter where they are, the Chinese fan base comes out and supports, and it's fantastic to see when you start speaking to some of them, like how they see players over there and how they fall around, tournaments and stuff globally to watch their teams and how they support them. More importantly, it's it's really cool. It's really
cool. That was the one in London, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to day one of that. That was nuts. That was a nuts event.
It is.
Yeah, it was
I
really
only to watch as a little fanboy, but yeah.
I think what impressed me, other than some of the plays about that event, was I think that was the first time that we had, was it 32 player pods for all the teams?
Yeah.
That's something that I love about
mental.
PUBG, about watching it. You see all these studios, and it's nuts seeing just how many players are there all playing at the same time. I mean, I thought that was really cool. But I also wanted to ask you, Sims, obviously you've been sort of in PUBG, professionally commentating almost since its inception, really. How do you kind of see the game and the esports scene sort of changing and growing?
It's hard, just because of like how things are unfolded at the moment, especially with COVID kind of killing off all the things what we're laying out for this year. And how things were last year with the Pro League, a few people says it wasn't ready for a Pro League, even though it was good, and I'd still always respect what PUBG have done and have advanced it. They will keep supporting it, which is good. It may have been a bit too early to set up a Pro League, and like 96 games we did last year at one point for one of the seasons. One of the seasons, 96 games long. It's like it got a bit boring towards the end. All the casters were definitely, it started to become repetitive. You can only say so much, rinse and repeat. But like for this year, they brought in the Continental Series now. We've just done the Charity Invitational. We've got the Continental Series 1 and 2. We have to cancel the Berlin Major, and rightfully so with Corona and everything else going on in the world. I understand it totally. So they've come back and they've definitely given us all their own regions specifically, their own timelines that they can go down. I don't know is the honest answer. They're working with the players. We've just got a ranking system as of last week. So there's now a ranking system, and when you go in there, you just see all the pro players just smashing it. It's not 110% the pro settings. It's damn near close. I think it would be good, and I've always said this, to get that playlist replicated to the pro settings so the audience has a better understanding. Like even me already, by playing it, I understand why the players are looted and geared within a minute flat. Like you're dropping, so the loot increases, you drop and you're fully spec'd up. It's like, well, crack on, go and fight. So I think to get that replica away and make sure that it is the exact pro settings that people are playing, they'll understand it better. The audience will be able to connect with it better. People will want to play it better and get better, to be honest with you. And I think with the Continental Series, the one downfall that the Pro Leagues had, it was very tough at the top. Once you were in, you were kind of in, and it was hard, even for the first season, because of some of the things that happened happened. There was no pre-con for season 1, just auto-qualified season 2, and that's how it did. And then you had a relegation for season 3. I think they're doing the right thing at the moment. I think they're making some changes, some advancements, and they are doing what they can, like any other TOs try to do at the moment, doing what we can in this current climate. I think it's good. It would be nice, and I think the rest of the world's hoping, to be honest with you, that Corona eventually, there's some kind of, there's starting to be lights at the end of the tunnel, but I just don't know how, with everything that's going on in the world at the moment, who knows where it's going to lead us and where it's going to be. So it's how people adapt, I suppose, to an online environment, which I think PUBG have definitely done a good job of. It's starting to be an older game. Let's be real. It's starting to, there are other games that are coming out. Other people moving from stuff. We've seen quite a lot of position from a lot of other games, to be honest, move to Valorant now, or say they're looking to move to Valorant. I don't know, is the honest answer. I'll certainly keep working on it until, however I can, or whatever happens, PUBG 2 or whatever else comes out in the pipeline. But yeah, I think for me at the moment, getting the pro settings into the main game is definitely, and working on that rank system, so people have got something to play and grind with, and even play against the pros. Like I'm playing now, and I'm matching against people that in the kill feed, I'm just pointing out players that I'm casting over because I can see them in there. So yeah, there's definitely giving a wider audience, better social media presence, better understanding is definitely a biggie, and I think that's the way forward.
Yeah, it's always super interesting to hear, from somebody's perspective who's been in the game for such a long time, really. We have one final challenge for you two before we round off this episode. It's one of my favourites that we did from last week, and we've brought it back again. It's a face match time. It's going to be of Quake Pro players. We've got one image and we have mashed 3 people's faces into it. Just pre-warning you, they were spooky last week, so they might be a little bit scary this time. Let's take a look at number 1. Shout out if you know who is here. Oh my God.
know. Yeah, I know.
So we got what? Avok, Dehang,
and Dewey.
Dewey.
Yeah. You got it in one. Well
so
done.
creepy.
You guys are pros.
That is.
Oh God.
That is scary.
That's
okay.
the face of Team Endpoint.
We've got another one. Let's take a look at face mash
like
number
Narcos
2.
villain.
Oh.
All right, that's Cypher, Dramis, and
Zoot.
No.
R.I.P. Zoot. Whose eyes are they?
Is that Razy?
Oh, it might be.
No, it's not.
Is it not?
But I see why.
Hron, maybe? No.
I can't work out who's.
It's another EU player.
I wish I could help, boys, but I can't.
just shout
the
a
eyes
name.
are so scary compared to anything else in that image. They're so.
It's like grey as well.
They're staring into my soul.
Dead set, follow you around the room.
So who did you say? You said Cypher and.
I said Cypher, Dramis.
Okay.
If I just keep shouting
right.
too good,
Right?
will it eventually
Yes,
come
they're
through?
right.
So just keep shouting too good, too good.
If you say it 4 times in the mirror, he just appears in
Oh,
your house.
no.
There you go.
With a copy of
Someone
Diabolical.
needs to fix their Photoshop skills. Holy moly.
Do you want any guesses?
I don't know who the eyes are. I've got no idea on the eyes.
Another EU player. I can't even. Kula?
No.
They're not. No, I give up.
A top EU player that's yet to win the finals.
I mean, that's most of them.
That's why I thought it was Razy. It looks like Razy's eyes.
Do you want the answer?
Go on.
Venga.
Oh.
Close though. You got the other 2 very, very snappy. So I'm very impressed with that.
That's hard.
We've got a 3rd and final one. So let's take a look at this. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
It's the scariest one yet.
Alright, so that's Effortless.
Yeah.
Nosfer?
Yep.
Effortless Nosfer and Tox?
Yes.
Oh man.
Well done. I'm very impressed.
That is...
Everything's just like
he looks like a
slightly
street
off.
shot.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Oh man.
Well, you
That's
didn't our guest last week. They definitely struggled. Very, very scary indeed. But yeah, we're sort of coming to the end of the show now, and I kind of wanted to throw it back to you, Dan. We've sort of been talking to every one of our guests about advice that they'd give to people looking to get into that specific area of esports. And obviously, you've had a breadth of experience across sort of a lot of roles in esports. But talking maybe more specifically about your role at Red Bull, What kind of a gift to somebody who was potentially looking, to get into marketing or sort of the behind the scenes aspect of things?
Yeah, I guess working on like the brands and the marketing side, it's really understanding what the brand. I mean, when you're applying for a brand, you need to understand what it is about that brand that you want to work for, and what value they bring to the scene, and what makes you tick. I mean, I applied for Red Bull because of my background in sport. I was always fascinated by everything they've done and the contribution they made, but then more specifically at esports because of their authenticity and the way in which they contributed to the scene. So running like Battlegrounds in 2014, 2015, these were big professional events when I was doing, and so I recognized that it was a brand that I aspired to work for, and I understood what they stood for. And so you need to really understand what the brand's message is, and if you align with that and if you buy into that. Otherwise, I think it's working in business, working in marketing. So as much as you can dig out on understanding the basic principles of marketing and the techniques and tactics that brands use. So it's, once again, if you're going to apply for a specific brand, is just analyzing what they're doing in the scene, understanding why they're doing it, and as much as you can then be on the same wavelength with them. That's what they're looking for, is someone that aligns with them and can really understand what their position and their messages is. If you've done that already, and then you're halfway there to really earning yourself a spot.
That's really interesting to hear. It's always really cool to get to speak to people that sort of involved behind this, because there is so much work that goes into getting these projects off the ground, and it's a particular here from the Red Bull perspective, because you struck me as a very, you're a very innovative company. There's sort of events that I've worked on where it's like nobody else would really think of this. So is that something that sort of really drew you towards the Red Bull as a brand?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like I said, I always recognized they were credible and authentic, and they generally cared about the scene, and working there, you see that even more, that they hire people who are from the scene, that want to make an improvement for the scene, and that creativity is always key. That if we can do something and make a difference and look cool doing it and have fun doing it, then that's what's going to make you really enjoy your job. And that's why it's so fun to work in esports, because there's so much potential, and everyone that you work within the scene is so grateful for the contribution you're making, and wants to be involved and be supportive, because it's a passion project for everyone involved. And so being in a brand that also cares about that and can support those ideas that we come up with and think can benefit the scene, we have the backing of the biggest brands in the world to make a difference. So you can't ask for any more than that, really. And so just being involved in that level with brands that want to make a difference is a real great place to be.
Yeah, it must be really, really awesome. Unfortunately, that is all we've got time for on today's show. We've actually been live over 3 hours now, and it's absolutely flown by. So again,
that's my fault. I'm sorry for.
No, honestly, no problem. It's been awesome to get to speak to each one of you that's been a guest appearing on the show tonight. Before we wrap up, I wanted to give you both the opportunity to kind of shout out maybe any upcoming projects that you're doing, anything you're working on. Sims, I'll start off with you.
I suppose it just goes for everyone who's out there. Everyone at the moment in the same boat with the work thing. Just keep going, keep grinding. It's not the easiest thing in the world to cope with, especially being at home, and we don't know what the future holds as such. Just keep on going, keep a positive attitude, and we'll all get through it together. It's a weird and wonderful time in the world right now, but I'm sure everything will hopefully one day pan out okay.
Yeah, that's definitely good to hear. And Dan, have you got any sort of final words before we head off?
Guess look out for my new fitness TikTok that I'm going to have to start.
Subscribe to Vitamin D on TikTok.
Yep. But no, I think I echo what Sims has said, that it's so strong. I think I think I'm working on in esports directly from a personal level is the Quake Pro League with Jacky, and we obviously value working in that space and think the game should be bigger than it is. So if you're fascinated, come check it out. Otherwise, keep it going.
Well, yeah, I'll definitely be checking out Quake when it's on air. And I'll also be making my first ever TikTok account to make sure that I keep up to date with your fitness videos. So you better stick to that word.
You should be my first follower.
Well, again, thank you so much, both of you, for joining me. Thank you to my wonderful co-host, Jacky, as always. We'll be back same time next week for more esports action. Make sure you join us then.